Hi, I'm Adesewa Josh, and I'll be leading this course on how to package like a pro. It's about writing and producing news packages for international broadcast news media, a skill in high demand worldwide in the journalism profession. Unfortunately, it's hard to find good training, and that's why I produce this course to provide you with tips and tricks to help you get started or to perfect what you already know. In this course, you'll learn how to put together a news story and to become the go-to source for packages on the stories happening around you. Package Like a Pro will help you turn your news gathering hobby into a money-making gig.
Corruption, impunity, and lack of accountability are responsible for Nigeria's underdevelopment. As citizens, we have a duty to report wrongdoings that endanger the well-being of the society. See something, say something. Blow the whistle today. Report corruption and other wrongdoings confidently and anonymously. Send tips to AfricMail on tips@corruptionanonymous.org or call 0811 877 1666 or the Presidential Initiative on Continuous Audit (PICA) on 0909 806 7946. Tips can also be submitted to the following anti-corruption agencies: EFCC, ICPC, Code of Conduct Bureau, or the Nigeria Police. This message is from the African Center for Media and Information Literacy, AfricMail, with support of MacArthur Foundation.
Hello, it is 11:30 a.m. in New York City, 4:30 p.m. in Nigeria. Wherever in the world you are, welcome to another edition of 90 Minutes Africa. My name is Rudolf Okonkwo. My co-host Chido Onumah is off today. Our guest this Sunday needs no introduction. He's a journalist with over 40 years of experience. He's the author of more than 5 books. He has taught in some of the most important universities in the world. His new podcast, The Offside Musings, is blowing up Apple, Spotify, and Audible. He just chaired the 2022 Caine Prize Committee of Judges for African Writing. His latest work, Never Look an American in the Eye, is a staple for memo writing studies. He says that a story that must be told never forgives silence. Please welcome to the show, Professor Okey Ndibe. Okay, Professor Ndibe, welcome to the show.
Thank you very much, Dr. Damages. Or should I say Rudolf Okonkwo?
Yeah, on this show, I'm Rudolf Okonkwo. Yeah, okay. But sometimes Dr. Damages will come out. We don't know where he comes from. We have the unknown bishops now, so there are characters coming out all over Nigeria. Now, welcome. We have some serious things to talk about today. Yes. The headlines in the newspapers. If you look at newspapers today, Sunday, you see one of the headlines says, "I challenge you to sit for 1 hour interview." That is Atiku challenging Tinubu to sit for 1 hour interview as a proof that he's ready to be president, So that's how our democracy,
That's where we are now.
That's where we are. Yeah, that's where we are. We are at the point where being able to sit down for a 1 hour interview is the proof that you can run a country.
Yes.
So have you been following the political situation in Nigeria?
I'm afraid I have been. It's not, how shall I put it? It's not the most palatable of vocations, but several decades ago, I made a pact with myself to become a writer and to become a commentator on Nigerian politics. And part of what comes with that territory is that one has to monitor political developments in one's country. So I must tell you that I'm sure you feel the same thing. It's very painful. It's sometimes traumatizing. Um, in fact, I was just saying to somebody earlier today that it seems to have become a habit in Nigeria that in order to become the president of the country, you have to be broken in a profound way, either mentally, psychologically, or physically. So, going by that sort of seeming national tradition, Tinubu, who is clearly enfeebled, who is clearly in poor health, will seem to be the perfect Nigerian kind of president, because we have tended to elect people in office who then, whether it's, well, even those within the leg like Abacha, and in some ways going back to even Babangida, men who were already struggling with ill health, presuming to run a country that is complex and dynamic and that really ideally should be run by the most engaged, energetic, alert, and physically fit men or women.
Now, I don't know if you watched the interview that Atiku granted Arise TV. That was yesterday or 2 days ago. Arise TV, and that interview, it was an opportunity for him to tell the country what he's going to give to the nation should he be the president. But most people who watched it didn't feel that he did a good job. Did you see the interview?
No, I haven't watched it. I've seen snippets of news reports of that interview. But even so, I mean, I'm not surprised. In a society that takes itself seriously and takes public leadership seriously, people like Atiku and Tinubu would not present themselves to be leaders. And so I'm not surprised. Atiku does not have the requisite intellectual, moral, and perhaps even physical stamina to run a complex nation like Nigeria. Nigeria is several decades behind where it should be. So we need, if anything, first grade material. People who understand what leadership means, people who have a certain vision of society, a certain vision of how to transform society, and who have the can-do spirit to take on that task. And Atiku just is in the mold of the typical Nigerian politician who aspires to leadership simply because really there are no consequences to failure in leadership, right? Everything is on the upside. You know, they end up making more money for themselves, more money for their inner family and for their cohort and their friends and so on. And they move on. They would have awarded themselves the highest national honor. And Nigeria is a place where memory lasts perhaps minutes. So the moment you leave and it's somebody else who takes over, Nigerians will forget all the atrocities that you committed as a leader. And that's why all kinds of really mediocre men and women, men mostly, present themselves to run the country and to run the states and so on.
So is there anybody running now that you think is suitable for that position?
Well, I famously said that Nigeria is at a critical state in its evolution that I don't think anybody who is elected is going to begin to make a dent. So I have proposed in several columns as well as in my podcasts that rather than hold the national elections next year, that different sectors in Nigeria should get together and select Nigerians of distinction in various areas of professional life and of endeavor, and that these individuals should constitute an emergency interim government that should run the country for as long as it takes. I'm not saying 1 year, I'm not saying 2 years. If it takes 10 years, they should run the country because we don't have the foundations to start with. Something as fundamental as the Constitution. The Nigerian Constitution is, to put it mildly, a yeye constitution. Okay? So we need a constitution. We need to set up national guidelines. We need, by the way, to resolve the question of whether we want Nigeria as a nation to start with. There are some people, it's become fashionable for some people to say that Nigeria is not negotiable. Nigeria is eminently negotiable. Any collectivity, political collectivity, is negotiable. Okay, Nigeria has not served any groups in Nigeria that I can see, and there are some people who think that the Northerners are doing well. Well, the few select members of the Northern elite are doing well, but so are the few select members of the Igbo political elite, the Yoruba political elite, the Ijaw, the Fufu, the Hausa, Efik, and so on and so forth. But Nigeria as a concept and as a reality does not work for 99%, perhaps more, of Nigerians, right? So if Nigeria is going to work, then we have to define what does Nigeria mean. Okay, so if you ask a Nigerian, what does Nigeria represent for you? They either would not have a clue, or if they have a clue, it's likely to be pain, it's likely to be trauma, it's likely to be that they experience Nigeria as some kind of menace, you know. So the police in Nigeria will harass you. If you're driving from Lagos to, say, Onitsha, you know, you encounter the Nigerian police every mile, okay? You encounter the customs every 2 or 3 miles. You encounter the soldiers at some checkpoints, and they can intimidate you, they can detain you, they can kill you, okay, and tell a story. So Nigerians don't have a sense of what their country means, apart from the pain that their country can cause them. So having said this, and some people's response to this prescription is, oh, you know, the Constitution does not
give room for that.
Give room for this. And I say to them, Nigeria does not exist. At any rate, the politicians who run the country do not run it according to even the imperfect, deeply flawed constitution that we have. So to say that the Constitution doesn't allow it is actually laziness. We need to
hold on. I like where you're going, because people also raise this issue and they say, how do you make that thing to happen? You know, how do you form what you call the emergency transitional government? Or so how do you begin? And who are the people that will be there? Wouldn't that be the same people that are currently in the Senate, in the House, in the, you know, who will represent the people that are not the same people that are everywhere?
Okay, well, this is my vision of it, right? In Nigeria, we have professional groups. We have groups representing doctors, lawyers, journalists, labor, university teachers, okay, architects, engineers, and so on. My vision is that Nigeria is broken on so many different levels, right? So you and I know of some states where governors have built bridges that only by God's grace, and we know that God's grace does not extend to, to bridges, right? So if you build a bridge that does not meet the proper engineering quantities and so on, structural integrity, that the bridge sooner or later, more sooner than later, is going to collapse, right? So we need all the sectors, and we need a sense. And I think that everybody in Nigeria understands now that the country is bankrupt. And when I mean bankrupt, I mean that it's not just financial bankruptcy, which it is. As you know, the government now, the federal government borrows money to pay salaries. Now, it's going to get worse next year. It's like almost 100% of the country's earnings are going to go into servicing the country's debt.
It's already happening.
Precisely. So a state, a country where all the resources available to the government go to servicing debt, and in order to pay salaries, the government has to borrow money. Can you see how ridiculous and absurd that is, right? So for us to pretend that there is a country that somebody will run to be president in is to fool ourselves. We don't have a country. And so really part of what we need to do is to signal to Nigerians that we want to explore the possibility of having a country. If we're going to have that country, like any entity that exists, we should treat this as the founding moment, really, or the refounding moment. But we've missed so many opportunities to found Nigeria. So all the professional groups should get together and bring out their best. They would know the country is bankrupt. So there's no point, in every organization, people know the corrupt, inept people. So if you ask the Engineering Association to bring out their best to be part of this interim government, they're not going to bring a fool who is perhaps didn't pass his engineering exam, but through bribing lecturers and so on. Doctors will bring out their best to create for the first time a healthcare system, to give a sense of what a healthcare system would be. Engineers will give a sense of what approaches we need to take to create infrastructure in the country, right? Lecturers will present people who will begin to think with ideas of creating an educational system that is wholesome and that is productive. Otherwise, what we're doing is to recycle failure and disaster and tragedy and mediocrity.
Let me push back, because people
Yes.
will say that something like the Nigerian Bar Association, they've been having elections, and the elections are not different from the election of the political
The Nigerian, politics,
yeah. So that if you actually say to the Nigerian Medical Association to produce people that will go into a kind of committee or government that you are proposing, that it will be the same class of people that will emerge, because they see that as opportunity to run the affairs of the country, and they could pay their way the way they normally do, and to come out on top. What do you say to that?
Well, look, I'll tell you. I'm aware of that. I'm aware that elections into the Bar Association, the executive of the Bar Association, are rife with corruption. But here's the difference. Government officials, over the years have taken an interest in who becomes the leader of the Bar Association, okay? Because they want the leadership of the Bar Association to be on their side as they wreck the country, okay? So the government officials give the members of the Bar Association resources to run, right? But the difference now is that everybody understands the country is bankrupt. So I'm going into this committee. There's no money that you share. In other words, the other point I want to make is that those who are going to be in this would essentially be volunteering their time. Yes, you will be paid a stipend to maintain you, but you are essentially taking a stake as a founder of Nigeria for the first time. Nigeria has not been founded, as Chido told me decades ago in my first interview with him, right? So even the corrupt ones will not go, because they would know that they're going there to come up with ideas for reforming the judicial system. And most of these people who bribe to become president of the Bar Association or something, are bankrupt fundamentally of ideas. So when they know that they are going to go to a forum where perhaps the best engineers, the best technologists, the best doctors will be there, wrestling with the questions of how to reform different sectors of Nigeria. And if what they have is just a sense of how to go and steal money, right? There's no money to be stolen. You're not going to be president. You are simply a committee of experts in different areas trying to build a country that is really absolutely, wrecked.
Okay, we have to go into so many things, but let me push a little bit more, because people will say that the national conferences we've had, several ones, conference, Abacha, Buhari, whoever, Jonathan, or Basenjo, how is this going to be different from those conferences?
Okay, so the national conferences we've always had, right, had the assumption they didn't have the same kind of urgency. So the urgency that I'm pointing to now, right, is an urgency that we don't have. We have a shell, we don't have a country. So we have emptied Nigeria of meaning. Okay, so if you look at events in Nigeria, and I'm sorry, I'm sort of getting to your question in a circuitous way, but imagine a country where law enforcement declares a man a terrorist who's killed people wanted. The same terrorist is being turbaned the Fulani leader of a community by an emir in the north. It's a public ceremony. It's attended by hundreds, perhaps thousands of people. And the security agencies in Nigeria do not go there to pick this man up. Okay? Imagine that in March of this year, people went to abduct victims from a train station. Since then, most of those who were abducted are still unaccounted for. Do you understand? Then imagine a country where a young woman writes a note on a listserv saying, hey, this listserv is for education. You should not be posting about your religion. And she is killed. And people make a video of this bonfire, okay? And months later now, we haven't heard of a trial that has started of the perpetrators of that crime, right? We're looking at a country where on February 14th, Valentine's Day, university lecturers started a strike. That strike continues today. In other words, there has been no university education in Nigeria since February 14th. And this is not a once in a 10-year event, it's a once in 2-year event. Do you understand? Then you look at a country where you travel from Lagos to any part of the country, okay? And the roads are in terrible shape. Where I went to Nigeria December of 2020, stayed there for a month. I stayed with a relative in Antony. I was pleasantly surprised that he had electric power for 20 to 22 hours every day. And I was happy. In April, I returned and stayed with the same relative. Now he had power for 2 to 3 hours at the best per day. So this is a country where an Obasanjo administration spent $16 billion saying that we're doing power projects. And there was nothing to show for it, right? And nobody has gone to jail. Nobody has been held to account. So we don't have a country.
So why do you think it's an emergency? It may be an emergency for you, but I don't think that it's an emergency for a lot of people, because they are not showing that it's an emergency. let me play a video. Let me play a video before we continue. Okay. Just a small video, and you see the reaction of people after watching this. Sorry.
I'm begging you to collaborate and make peace part of your master plan. You be there and I'll be in and I'm in.
But they are clapping for him, they are supporting him. They don't feel the sense of emergency.
No, they do.
They
okay.
do?
I mean, let me put it this way.
Okay.
I'll put it this way. You know, we have no theater in Nigeria. In America, to have a good laugh, you go to a comedy store. Our politicians become our entertainment. But not only are they entertainment, they're also entertainment that would occasionally throw money up. And in a country that is dirt poor, if you're lucky, you snatch 100 naira, 200 naira, and you can buy akara or ogi for your family for the next day. Tinubu is that kind of entertainment. It is when Tinubu can go and stage all these events. To have a sense of the true feelings of Nigerians, you go back to a movement like NSAS. Okay? When NSAS was happening, youth in Nigeria were demanding major and perhaps even fundamental changes in their country. And that is what frightened the political leadership, and they decided to use brute force to mow down the youth. The true feeling, I can tell you, the true feeling of the generality of Nigerians is not reflected when they go to these events, where sometimes they're able to drink a mineral or there is something distributed. Nobody goes to these events unless they expect to get something. People did not troop to Tinubu expecting, oh, Tinubu is going to give us a vision of how he's going to improve our lives, right? People don't go to Atiku's rallies thinking that, right? Unlike in the First Republic when Zeke or Awo campaigned, or Tafawa Balewa, there were people who believed. These were politicians who, as flawed as they were able to articulate a vision. Some of them wrote books, which they really wrote. The books are not written for them by their speechwriters. They really wrote these books. So don't be deceived that there are people who go to Tinubu. They are not, in a lot of ways, they think that they have no hope. So this is all they've got, okay? And so when they go there, I mean, so let me sort of tell you a little bit of what happens, say, in the Southeast. You know that funerals and traditional weddings have become extraordinarily spectacular events, okay? So people talk about befitting burials. There's a lot of money, there's a lot of expense, there's a lot to eat and drink. What I've been told is that if somebody has wealth that the community considers inordinate, that the community considers inexplicable, people will come to your, let's say you lose a relative and you're doing a funeral. People will come there, ask for a bottle of beer, drink half of it, throw the rest away, and ask for another bottle, drink half of it, and throw the rest away. It's their way of revenging because they feel you have wealth that you did not earn. Okay? So, and people will come and pack food to take home. They don't just come to eat, right? So part of that reaction is poverty. People are poor. So even if a thief, a well-known thief, calls a meeting, people go because they have to eat. But the other thing is, once they have the opportunity and nobody is looking, that thief could be lynched, which is why these thieves, whether they are politicians or bureaucrats and so on, walk around with security around them. Tinubu does not mix with people. Tinubu will not do an Obama event where he goes to the crowd and starts shaking, doing high fives. Okay, so there is this Yeah, people will shout back and seem to praise him and so on. But I can tell you that there is no love lost between
Okay.
him and the people.
Okay, let's talk more about the emergency, the sense that this is an
Hmm.
urgent situation. There are people who feel that way.
Hmm.
But they've decided, they've looked at the country, and they've decided that it's not working anywhere, that they are
Hmm.
going to pull out of Nigeria.
Hmm.
So you find them in the Biafran movement, the
Hmm.
Odua movement in the West,
Hmm.
and several other groups in other parts of the country. So what's wrong with that their position, that they are fed up with Nigeria, they could see the emergency you are pointing out, and they feel like, okay, we want to leave. It's not working for us, and we can't wait anymore. You're muted. Can you unmute yourself, please? You muted yourself. I think it's an accident.
Okay.
Okay, go.
Yes, yes, yes. Okay. So for me, I said earlier that I don't consider Nigeria as sacred. So Nigeria is open to negotiation. And what that means for me is that Nigeria could contract, could become smaller by different groups leaving, or Nigeria could actually become bigger if part of Cameroon, through a plebiscite, wants to join Nigeria. I welcome it, right? There is nothing wrong fundamentally with agitation for separation, okay? I actually think that it should be the rights of people to agitate to leave. But also, what I tell people is I once was in Boston for a conference where I spoke on the Biafran question. And I said to people, when you say that Biafra is the answer, what is the question? Okay? So I'm not saying Biafra is not the answer, but what is the question? Now, I lived as a child through the first Biafran war. And I know that there was a lot of energy and passion, this desire by people to determine their own affairs. But I also know that in the midst of the war to achieve Biafra, that there was a lot of injustice in Biafra. Okay? I happen to know that officials hoarded relief material that was donated by international agencies, hoarded them for themselves, for their friends. And you go to the market and see bags of rice and bags of beans marked not for sale, being sold in the market. It wasn't small time traders who went and got it. It was government officials, Biafran government officials, who distributed these things to their fronts to sell for them, as their own people were suffering. So the idea that if we became Biafra, every problem will be solved is self-deception. So what I say to people is, if you want Biafra, that's fine with me, provided you understand that when you create Biafra, you have to struggle to achieve a fair, equitable, just country. If you think that once they say Biafra or they say Anambra becomes a country or Imo becomes a country, that, oh, all the problems will disappear. I want people to recognize that when they're saying that Nigeria is a zoo, when that statement is made, I say to people, I can accept that. Nigeria, as currently constituted, resembles a zoo. But that zoo has been created by the political elite, who include Igbo people, Yoruba people, Anang people, Efik elite, Fufude elite, Hausa elite. It was not created by one group. And when people say, try to assign virtue to themselves, okay, I say to them, you are engaging in self-delusion. The kidnapping that happens in the Southeast is done mostly by Igbo people. Okay? So suddenly, Igbo people have begun to do some of the things that we criticized in, say, Boko Haram, the kind of gruesome violence that we engage in. Okay? The decapitation of people. So I want people to know that we have all been traumatized by Nigeria. So one option is to fight collectively across ethnic, religious lines to recreate Nigeria. Or, and I'm willing to accept this, to separate into our different units, but with understanding that when you retire to your different enclave, you still have to struggle in order to create a country that will be meaningful for you. If you think that Biafra is just going to be all bliss, I have the Atlantic Ocean to sell you.
Yeah, but the people who support Biafra, they will say, or they do the One Nation, they will say one of the the talking points that is difficult to argue against is that they think they can, within that Biafra or do a nation, they can control their politicians, they can put them in check. But within the Nigerian context, it's difficult because of the structure of things. The federal power protects these political actors in the regions that they have no power to. They actually when someone pointed out the issue of Milling in the East, basically saying that because the federal government was not really involved in dealing with that, they went in, the local people went in and dealt with that. So how do you fault that argument?
Okay, so how false it is? First of all, it's like a society can quickly devolve into a kind of jungle ethic. Okay, so when people say we can handle our local politicians if we are Biafra, or if we're Duduwa land, or if Anambra State or Imo State now becomes a country, we can neutralize our politicians who are errant. They have a fundamental misunderstanding of the way that power operates. Money is an important asset in the fight for political power in any community. So if Imo State became a state tomorrow, became a country tomorrow, Russians will be far more powerful than a lot of people, would imagine. He's got the money. Perhaps that money was stolen from Imo State, but he's got it. And once he's got the money, he can be dangerous. He can hire people who will beat up his political opponents. He can bribe electoral officials. Corruption is not going to disappear just because a state has been miniaturized. Okay, and at any rate, I think that what we have in Nigeria, what we have in our space, is what I call a moral and cultural crisis. I went to school at a time, and I'm sure you did too, when my parents would not hear of some of the things that are practiced today. So today, a tradition called sorting is so commonly practiced in schools all over the country, where parents will give their wards, their children, money during exam time to go and bribe lecturers. There are special centers, right? You know about it yourself. I knew about it just 2 years ago. This is called special centers, where parents pay for their children to go take exams, because those centers will find somebody to take exams for your children, or the invigilators will be telling the answers to children. It was unthinkable. I mean, my parents would have killed me if I went to them and said, "Hey, bring money. There is somebody, I will bribe an invigilator, and he will give us the answer." So my parents would say, "Why did we pay for you to go to school? Go and become something else, become a laborer or something," right? So we now have a cultural crisis. And part of that cultural crisis played out in the Bakassi movement in the Southeast, where our people said that there was some mystical way of determining who was an armed robber. So they said they will put a knife on the floor, and they will ask you if you're a suspect to jump over the machete or something, and that if you're an armed robber, the machete will turn red. And they will decapitate a human being. Okay? So that might be what we relapse into, So, yes, we could go and start setting fires to the homes of corrupt politicians, but then we're not running a human society. We're running according to the ethic and rules of the jungle. So, if we want a civilized society, if we want a society that has true democracy and that brings the fruits of development to people, we have to modernize our ways of thinking. We have to become more objective, essentially. We have to start saying if there's an election and there's somebody from our hometown who is running, or from our home state, or from our ethnic group, or from our religion, but we know that somebody else from a different hometown, from a different religion or state is better, we have to vote for that other candidate. But our people too many times will vote for our own man, even if it's worse.
Okay, that brings us to a very good segment. If you look at the political environment today, there is former governor of Anambra State called Peter Obi. I'm sure you know him.
Yes,
and,
very well.
Yeah. So a lot of people are putting him up as the hope, maybe the only hope within the political system of today. What do you think about him? What is it that people outside Anambra State probably see in him that people probably inside the state may not think that is there?
Okay. Well, first of all, there is a kind of movement. There is a kind of Obi has excited a lot of Nigerians, especially young Nigerians. And I think that the reason for that is understandable. Nigerians have not, in a long, long time, perhaps after the 60s, Nigerians have not found a politician, a political leader, a political aspirant who appears to have thought, who appears to think about the problems in the country and to spell out those problems and to articulate in some way ways of addressing those problems. So will tell you of the productive, the capacity of the productive capacity of energy in Egypt, in Indonesia, in Thailand, in this and that country, and then compare it with Nigeria. So he gives figures and so on. So Nigerians see that as a breath of fresh air. We've always needed that. Okay, so when the Nigerian politician, typical Nigerian politician will say to you, in that very lazy repetition of a cliche, I want to be president, I want to be governor, I want to be local government chairman, in order to deliver the dividends of democracy, which phrase Obasanjo used in his inaugural address when he was elected. And so the Nigerians thought, oh, this is such an amazing phrase. So everybody, I want to deliver the dividends of democracy. And he said to them, how are you going to do that? I want to move the state forward or the nation forward. So it's very lazy. And that's typically because most of those who aspire to leadership in Nigeria are ill-educated. They are lazy mentally. So Obi, when he talks about all these issues, excites Nigerians. And Obi comes across as a youthful, physically fit person. So there's this combination of a certain sense of intellectual vibrancy and physical fitness, right? Which would be a welcome departure from what we've had in Nigeria. Now, my problem with Obi is that when he was governor in Anambra State, he and I had a very testy relationship, and I wrote quite a bit about him. I faulted Obi for a certain cult of personality, okay? That Obi is extremely self-referential, And it's not a good thing in a leader. A leader should be able to identify men and women who have gifts that he's then going to delegate challenges to. Okay? When a leader presumes to know everything, that's actually a weakness. That's one. Obi also tends to overpromise. And Obi tends to, so Nigeria's problems are so deep and so fundamental and vast. So when you begin to give the impression that if you are made president, you'll solve everything, then I would say pause for a minute. Okay? You cannot solve everything. Nigeria doesn't have the money. I don't think the international community has the stomach to lend us the money. So it's going to be a lot of doing. Maybe if he became president, he would take the first 1 year trying to just stop the bleed. Okay, because somebody who is a military officer in Nigeria told me that about 75% of the country's oil exploration is stolen. So by private individuals. Again, that's not a country. That's part of why I say we don't rush into an election. If even if people were able to steal 1% of Nigeria's oil production, that's a big crisis. But when it is more than half of a country's resources that's stolen, don't pretend we have a country. There's no country there, right? So to get back to Obi, another problem I have with Obi is what I call the self-inflicted hypocritical wound. Okay? When people don't ask you certain things, don't go stating things which may turn out upon scrutiny not to be true. Okay, so famously a few years ago, Big claimed that he owned only one wristwatch. And so Nigerians went out there and found pictures of him wearing several wristwatches. Okay, so such things. Okay, he was a wealthy businessman before he became governor. So it would be fine and expected if he owned several wristwatches. So when you come out and want to create an impression of being ascetic and being self-disciplined and restrained, and you tell a fib, then people will begin to wonder, if you're lying to us about owning one wristwatch, what else are you lying to us about? So I would say to him not to hug the microphone so much, not to be there speaking so much, to actually create a network of people who would work for him, begin to appoint advisors in different areas. And some questions that are asked of you say, go to this, my go-to man. That's who I have asked to look at the question of how to industrialize Nigeria. Go to this other person, that's who I have asked to begin to think about how to reform the educational sector. Don't be the one doing everything, because when you do it, you overpromise, you get into fibs, into falsehood, you get into unnecessary, unforced errors. And but having said all of this, I think that clearly of the three major candidates, Tinubu, Atiku, and Obi, I think that Obi is the most exciting of the three, right? And I think that we see that excitement on the internet. Whether it's going to translate, I was just in London, and I was talking to some Nigerians that who came in from Nigeria for the Caine Prize that I went to hand out to the winner. And so there were a group of young people. In fact, two of them are lecturers who came from Nigeria, and then another person. So we were talking about the phenomenon around Obi, and I was wondering whether there was something real about it, or whether it was just an internet phenomenon. And they assured me that a lot of young people are indeed going to get their voters' cards, and with the intention of voting for Obi and of defending the vote. So maybe Obi will spring a surprise, perhaps. But in order to do that, he has to defeat the monster of his own flaws, and also the monster of ethnicity and religion and so on.
Yeah, very, very, very good. I like how you went to that ethnicity and religion. The other candidate who is also uh, being considered as a major candidate is Tinubu, and he picked Shetima as his running mate, and that caused a lot of point is not important or is important. Do you think the Christian Association of Nigeria, that is something that they shouldn't worry about the way they are worrying about it? What is your position?
Well, first of all, I think that Tinubu has had a very terrible run so far in his campaign. Okay, if anything, I think that his campaign in the very early going is losing steam. Look at all the errors he's made, right? His physical and mental fitness. Okay, there was that viral video where Tinubu appeared to have peed on himself. Okay, that raises questions about his physical ability. There are these videos where Tinubu's hands are shaking. Okay, even when he was speaking at the APC convention, he could hardly articulate. There's a refusal of Tinubu perhaps to engage with journalists, because Tinubu, when he speaks now, is a painful sight to watch. It's difficult for him to articulate a sentence. There is the fact that Tinubu just lost, okay, his own candidate, governorship candidate, who was the incumbent in Osun State, lost to a man, Adeleke, who is most famous for partying and dancing. That's not a good sign, especially shortly after Tinubu just became the APC candidate and his party was the incumbent party in office and lost. So there was Tinubu in Ogun State before the APC convention, boastfully saying that it was his turn to become president. And in that speech, he managed to insult so many people. He insulted Igbo people, that Buhari had run with these 3 Igbo men and, came to nothing. And then I basically made him president. Okay. And insulted the governor of Ogun State. Okay. So he had to apologize somewhat. But even the Yoruba people, I met a savvy Yoruba friend in London, and he told me that Tinubu presumes to be Awo, but he says he's not in the conversation at all, and that Awo earned the love and the adulation of the Yoruba people, but that Tinubu has earned money from the Yoruba people, but has done little to earn the respect and reverence that people used to have for Awo. And then he chooses, after the history that Nigeria has had for 8 years and more, the history of Boko Haram, of unbridled attacks by herdsmen who have seized communities, raped women, pillaged farmlands, without the government lifting a hand. A situation where over the last 8 years there have been so many attacks directed against, both Muslims and Christians, but mostly against Christians by extremist Islamist groups. A case where Buhari has set a record for nepotism in the country, where every appointment seemed to be an opportunity for him to lift another person from his own small part of the country into office. So, given all of that context, for Tinubu to choose a Muslim ticket and invoke states where that has happened, or invoke the Abiola era, Nigeria is no longer in 1993. Okay, Nigeria has changed. And yet, perhaps the most important thing is that Tinubu himself seemed to have recognized that he did something that he ought not to have done. So he goes and hires a troupe of clownish actors and decks them out in the garment of bishops and priests and pastors to grace or disgrace the occasion. So why would you do that if you were doing the right thing? A leader with his salt would have said, I'm going to face people, the Nigerian people, and I'm going to explain to them why I have made this decision and why it makes sense. Okay, so Kashim Shettima has described himself and Tinubu as the dream team. And I said, if this is a dream team, then I want a nightmare team. Okay, and so it's an insult on the intelligence of Nigerians. It's an insult to Christians that you make a choice and then you orchestrate this clownish, tragicomic parade of fake pastors and bishops. If you did the right thing, then just say, hey, I own it. And I'm going to make it make sense. So, no, I don't think he did the right thing. And I think that his presidential ambition is quickly going to fizzle.
Okay, now we are going to also bring in the audience to talk to you in a short while, but I still have a lot of questions, and I wonder where we'll find the time to address.
I know, we haven't even talked about
your podcast. Your podcast, you are the Caine Prize. Let's go to your podcast, and
sure.
I know that I looked at the titles, so some of the titles you gave to the podcast. So on February 13th, you had one. You said, "Tinubu and others, please don't run."
Please don't
so,
run.
Yeah. At that point, you were telling them not to run. Okay.
Yeah.
Then I saw that on June 7th, you said cancel 2023 elections.
Mm-hmm.
You proposed that a transitional government. Mm-hmm. Then on June 21st, you made a further case against the 2023 elections. Then I see here on June 26th, is Peter Obi's election, question mark. So I see there are a lot of question marks. So it's like, and also I see the transition. You wanted to say this election should not happen, but you see that it's going on. And that's the question I want to ask people who are like you, who are analyzing issues. Mm-hmm. You may not want something to happen, but the train is moving. Mm-hmm. What do? You find yourself analyzing what is happening instead of insisting that this is the wrong path that we are going. Mm-hmm. Is there a way to be ahead of the curve, a way to be, to not fall into this situation?
Well, I tell you something. Fundamentally, my position is that we should suspend elections in Nigeria, that we don't have a country. That my idea is that you have an election when you have a space that is coherent, a space that is recognizable, a space that is infused with values, a space that you can define. Nigeria is an amorphous, confused, chaotic, empty space. Okay. I was showing you who said years ago at a lecture he gave at Harvard that there is a space, but there is no nation in this space. So there is a space called Nigeria, but there is no national spirit. And Achebe said, as I indicated earlier in my first interview with him as a young journalist, Achebe said that the Nigerian nation has not been founded. And Nigeria is still looking for a founder, for somebody to be its founder. So, but Nigeria was able to keep maintaining the facade, okay, of being a nation, okay, because yes, we had money, we could award contracts, we could, get a national assembly, pay them a lot of money, and they will go there and call each other, my colleague, my distinguished colleague or whatever. But when you have a situation where several governors have now said that the central bank prints money, they have no more money, the Nigeria is earning nothing. So what you have is a worthless currency. When you have a country that has had decades of oil wealth, but we haven't even had something as basic as roads, Rudolf. Do you understand? As basic as roads. I mean, I've traveled widely around the world. I've traveled within Africa itself. And you find poorer African countries, and at least they have roads, they have electricity, they have water. Okay? So you're looking at a country where all this time, since I was a child, power will have electricity for 15 hours or something, and we'll still be shouting NEPA when the light went up. We say they took light, and suddenly we're looking at some areas that will go for weeks without power at all. A nation of the size of Nigeria generating 4,000 megawatts and less. A nation like Nigeria, where all universities will go on strike, will be shut down for 6 months, and nobody thinks it's wrong. And this is a regular, frequent event. A country where we have no healthcare system, where often when you take a patient to the hospital, the doctor will turn into a pastor and say, "Let us ask God to heal." Okay? So, Rudolf, we have spent, Achebe said it best when he said in his little political tract, The Trouble with Nigeria, that Nigeria is a country that snatches defeat from the jaws of victory. We have everything that is required to create a first-class nation. So Nigeria has some of the best writers in the world, some of the best engineers in the world, best surgeons in the world, best professors in the world. They are teaching and doctoring and writing in different spaces around the world. But somehow our political leadership is farmed out to the worst, most reprobate, most reprehensible of our elements. And these are the ones who are willing to kill you if you stand in the way of them getting political power. And so these are the ones who are so mindless when they steal the resources of the state. They have no sense of moral restraint, okay? But we've left them for so long. So we don't have a country. So for me, I keep saying to Nigerians, I want to be that voice in the wilderness, saying to Nigeria, listen, you don't have a country. Pause this election. Because every election in Nigeria comes with a lot of violence, a lot of people are killed, there's a lot of money that is wasted. The money that Tinubu and Atiku spent to buy their respective parties' nominations would have enabled all the lecturers to go back to school and our kids to be in classrooms. Okay? So we don't have a nation. So instead of which politicians are going to distribute the little money that is left among themselves. Again, I had dinner with a businessman in Nigeria just before I left Nigeria May 14. And he said to me that his business had been trying at that point to buy a few dollars, that every dollar had been picked up by politicians who were preparing for their primaries. So a country where no politician feels a need to spell out a vision of the country, okay? But instead just spends money and lines people up. And some of them will say, okay, before I give you money, you have to swear to some deity. I mean, it's the sort of thing that should happen in the 12th century, not in the 21st century. That's
Okay.
what's happening in Nigeria. So let me make this point. So I will keep crying to Nigerians, a voice in the wilderness saying, pause these elections. We don't have a country. You need an interim government of experts, an emergency government. But as I'm saying this, I also realistically know that Nigerians, many Nigerians are not willing to think at that level. So they are thinking of this current election. So I have to also pay some attention to what's going on now. And I know that there's this excitement around Obi. But as I've told people, yes, Obi will be the best. Obi is a better candidate than Atiku and Tinubu. But Obi is not magic man. So if Obi wins, Nigerians will be so disappointed because there's no money and there is a limit to what, even with the best of intentions, he can do.
Now, why podcast? You know, I know you were writing columns for many years. Why did you change into podcast? And what is your podcast about?
So my podcast is called Offside Musings, which was also the title of my column at the Daily Sun newspaper, which I wrote a column for 18 years. Started in the Guardian newspaper, then I went to the Daily Sun, went briefly to 234 Next, then went back to the Daily Sun. I stopped writing my column in 2017, middle of 2017, not out of choice, but because the Daily Sun, which had an agreement with me over 10 years to pay me a certain amount, unilaterally decided to stop paying. So I said, without telling me. And so once I found out, I said, no, you have to pay me the arrears of what you owe me, because I'm a professional writer and I take my writing seriously. If you're not going to pay me what you've been paying me over 10 years, you have to at least have the courtesy to tell me and discuss it. Not to tell me, but we should discuss it. So I decided to sort of take a long sabbatical, writing my books. I'm an author of books, and I teach at universities occasionally. And but then last year, as we began to shape, we began to talk about the 2023 elections. Several newspapers in Nigeria approached me and proposed that I restart my column for them. But my experience in the past, whether when I was writing in the Guardian or in the Sun, was that there was a lot of strife with the editors over my writing. They felt I was, politicians would call them and say, you have to stop Okey Ndibe from writing, right? And so the editors will call me and say, you're, creating troubles for us. So I decided that this time around, rather than write in a paper, which would try to censor what I wrote, that I better write in a platform that I would control. And I also wanted to, this time around, speak particularly to young people. Because it's about them. More than 64% of the Nigerian population is made up of young people. And yet the country's politics is dominated by superannuated old men, geriatrics, who have absolutely no vision for running a nation. So I want young people to seize their country back from these buffoons, okay? So I decided to choose a platform that is sort of more congenial to young people. And I recognize that a lot of them like to listen to things rather than read. But I also want to be able to reach my usual former audience of more adult readers. So I do a podcast, and then I do an accompanying column that follows the podcast. So it's actually two services in one.
How do you sustain it?
It's difficult. And especially I've taken to traveling again. So last week I was in London as the chair of the committee of judges for the 2022 Caine Prize. So I wanted to write something at least, but I was so busy. First of all, before I went to London, my wife and I were in Portugal. We were celebrating 30 years of marriage. And so thank you. So we spent a small vacation in Portugal, and then we came to London, where I had to meet with my fellow judges and do several events before the award ceremony for the AKO Caine Prize, which was given last Monday night.
Let's talk about that, because I think we have about 10 more minutes before we let our audience in. So Caine Prize for African writing is, as far as I know, for short stories.
Yes. So, it's for short stories. It was established, I think, in 1999. The first prize was given in 1999 as an offshoot of the Booker Prize, actually. So Michael Caine was the chairman of the Booker group of companies, which established the Booker Prize. And so they, at some point, it was decided that as a way of honoring Michael Caine, that and he had he had been a businessman. He'd done some business in Africa and so on. So a group of his friends and colleagues and so on decided to establish a Caine Prize for African short stories. So the entries are short stories. They are by any African writer, whether on the continent or outside of the continent. One of your parents has to be an African, born in one of the 54 countries in Africa, and in any language, but it has to be translated into English. So you could have written originally in Arabic or in Portuguese, provided there's an English translation. You can enter your story, and it pays £10,000 for the winning entry. The four writers who don't win but who are on the short list get £500. And so this year was a groundbreaking year in so many ways. For 2 years, they had not met physically to give the award because of COVID. Excuse me. And so I was invited early this year to chair the panel of judges, and so not only was it the first year in 3 years that it was the award ceremony was in person physically, but the number of entries this year broke all records. Before, I think the record was about 160 stories. But this year we had 267 stories to read, out of which we spent close to 4 hours deciding the five writers, the 5 stories that were on the short list. There were 2 Ghanaian writers, a Kenyan writer, a Nigerian writer, and a writer from Ethiopia. So ultimately, the Kenyan writer, Itza Luhumyo, became the winner of this year's prize, and she is a really stunningly gifted writer.
Now, people are wondering, from the stories you read, do you think African stories in a good place? Are there Shoinkas and Gugis and Achebes, upcoming Gugis and Shoinkas and Achebes? Do you think African stories in a good place? Are there Shoinkas and Gugis and Achebes, upcoming Gugis and Shoinkas and Achebes?
I was in fact deeply impressed by the entries in this year's prizes. As a judge, one had to rank the stories from 1 to 5, and of the 267, there were at least close to 30 that I ranked at 5. So there could have been 30 stories for me personally that qualified, that could have been in contention with the prize. I was also struck by the spread, the diversity of stories that one encountered there. African writers used to be preoccupied with political, social, big issue, big themes in their writing. What I'm seeing now is that African younger writers in Africa are taking on every possible subject. You know, they are writing love stories, they are writing, celebrating identities, and you know, just setting their stories abroad, setting them anywhere they please, and so on. So taking the kind of writerly license that was not the case in past generations, at least not to the degree that I saw it. So I think that there's a wealth of talent on the continent, and that there's a vibrancy, there's an energy and passion coming from African writers, definitely.
Mm. So talking about the prize and prizes in literature, it's a controversial issue in some ways. It appears as if until someone gets a prize, until some European or Western countries, until an organization raises the hand of an African writer and say, you won this prize, that they don't seem to get the kind of respect you expect. Is that accurate description?
Yeah, it's unfortunate. It's really unfortunate. And part of it is, give me a second. Yeah, so part of it is that there's African writing is still in a lot of ways in its youthful phase, right? And we have not done enough from within the continent to set aesthetic criteria for our writing, so that, unfortunately, my experience, for example, is that African publishers still look to writers who are picked up by publishers in New York, in Paris, in London. So once you're picked up abroad, then African publishers get interested in you. That they don't recognize that perhaps it is their place to show the world the best that Africa has to, produce. So there's an anomaly there, both in terms of the production of African writing, as well as the way in which prizes, awards, tend to shape the perception of critical success in an African writer. So it's unfortunate, but part of it I ascribe to a relative youth of African writing, so that people are still sort of grappling for how do we determine who is what being read, right? So ultimately they go for the person who's received very plush awards and so on. But as we all know, there are writers who won awards, major awards, and they were destined for anonymity. And then there are writers who didn't win awards and remain enduring artists and live in the memories of people. So it's important to put all literary prizes in perspective.
Now I'm talking about that because we have one in Nigeria, the NLNG Prize.
Yes.
It gives out $100,000, which is a lot more than the £10,000 the Caine Prize gives out.
Yes.
But the Caine Prize has more, I think, more.
Absolutely, prestige, if you like.
Prestige, yeah, exactly. So why is that? Why is it that the Nigerian prize of $100,000 is not. So there are some books that won the Nigerian prize that you can find on Amazon.
It's a shame, isn't it? It's a real shame. It's first of all, I'll put it this way. My take on the NLNG prize is that it's a very, in my view, misconceived prize. There is no point in paying $100,000 to a writer in Nigeria. You know, and what they do is, I think they have 3-year cycles. So 1 year they give to fiction, another year they give to poetry, then they give to drama
or children's books.
Or children's books.
I think.
Okay. So the way I look at it is, if you have $100,000 to play with, why don't you give $15,000 prize every year to fiction, every year to poetry, every year to drama? Okay. And then, or even make it 10,000, and then use the 70,000 to support the publication of this book. You know, there are publishers in England, in this country, that you can engage in partnership with, so that the winner of the prize, or the winners of the prizes in Nigeria, are then find publishers in these spaces as well. I mean, of course, some of the books that win are already published abroad, right? But if it is a book published in Nigeria that wins, then you should be able to strike an agreement where you defray the cost of some publishers, or you offer an amount for them to do promotions of this winner, so that it becomes, he or she becomes part of their list, and then goes to certain conferences and literary festivals around the world. So, as you said rightly, it's a shame that we have a prize in Nigeria that pays $100,000 to the winner, and apart from Nigerian newspapers and 1 or 2 African websites, that's hardly reported. Okay. But the Caine Prize winner was in every major newspaper in the UK. Oprah magazine online has published it, and so on and so forth. So there is something also about just the way that you conceive the story, the way you tell your story. So it's, again, one of those issues of Nigeria not being able to package itself well, not being able to tell its story well. Because if you have $100,000 to pay for a book, that's one of the richest prizes that books get anywhere in the world. But we have failed to tell that story. We have failed to tell the story of the winner, to make that winner seem to matter as a writer in the world.
Okay, one last question before we go. I know that before we let our audience come in, one last question.
Yes.
So, last question. That is, what Chimamanda came out the other day to endorse Peter Obi, essentially saying, "I cannot wait to vote for him." And I know that part of this subject of this conversation is the role of a writer in democracy and in affairs of the continent of Africa. So, what do you think about that writer's role in this conversation about politics in Nigeria? And
Well, no, I think that it's a question that every writer has to answer for him or herself. You know, I'm never prescriptive about these things. I personally refrain from endorsing any candidate. I am by vocation, by choice, a social critic, a political analyst. And so I cannot be seen. I mean, I've written that Obi appears to be the most exciting candidate and to excite the greatest attention, especially amongst young people. That's as far as I go. I'll never be caught endorsing Peter Obi. And I also don't share with people, by the way, who I vote for. As a citizen, if I were in Nigeria, I would vote. I take voting seriously. I vote in America religiously, but I make a point of not discussing this choice that I make, except with very close loved ones.
Okay. All right. We'll take a break. When we come back, we'll get the audience involved in this conversation. So stay tuned.
Hello? Oh, Chido. Hello?
Can you hear me? Hello? Can you hear me? You can. I can't hear you though. I cannot hear you.
Oh boy.
You can hear me.
Yes, I just heard you a bit.
Okay. All right. Good.
Yeah. Thank you.
All right. So that was all right. So we have a lot of people who are trying to join us and they want to have a conversation with you. We are going to bring them in. First of all, let me bring in your the studio is full already. It's just
We're just starting.
The studio is full. We haven't even started taking questions. Okay, so we'll probably do more than 30 minutes of questions. I wanted to bring your co-host, but I can't find him now.
I think he's on the road somewhere. He's driving home, and he will join us as soon as he gets home.
Okay, all right. So we've had a lot of subjects and conversations, and I don't think I should waste more time talking to you. let's just bring in other people who might have better questions than the ones I had. So joining us from Lagos is Sunday Wants to welcome to the show.
Thank you, Mr. Rudolf. Doctor, I respect you.
All right, thank you.
My special brother Ndibe, you're welcome, sir.
Okay, good. CM, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Rudolf.
Okay, Nneka, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Good morning, everyone.
Good morning. Alaro, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me. It's a pleasure.
Alexi, welcome to the show. Declan, welcome to the show. Ovie, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Doctor.
And Femi, welcome to the show. So what we're going to do is I'll give everybody a chance to ask a question or make a comment, and then can you please mute your system if you unless I call your name to speak. So I'll give you a chance to ask a question. Just make it brief, 1 minute. Don't go beyond that. After that, we will let you go so that other people will have an opportunity. Our studio is already full, and we can add any new person who may want to talk. So let me start with you. Sunday wants to welcome, and any question for Okey? Unmute yourself, Sunday.
Okay. First and foremost, I will say thank you, Dr. Jackery, and the damages in all your good work you're doing right this time around anyway. And when I heard about your guest, speaker today, Ndibe, it took me almost an hour 30 minutes waiting patiently to listen and hear him out. And generally, my brother, we are sitting on a kind of a dynamite. Nigeria, I know people can say it's not a nation because the parameter of what a nation is all about cannot be simplified in the context of this nation. And most importantly, let me use this word of Peter Obi coming into the race, as a third force. Yes, I know. The man the three major candidates. Yeah, the system seems to be the better candidate among others. But the main issue now is this: it's not a question of individual, Peter Obi as an individual. In a governance, one man cannot do a magic. But the problem of this nation is there is no institutionalized institution that can be able to do things rightly. For example, now, no matter how good intent or intentions, Mr. President, Peter Obi, if eventually Nigeria believes in him and voted him in, that power that be, could they allow it to happen? That is one simple question yet to be answered. Secondly, the indices of him dispatching dispassionately those good things he thinks that will translate this nation from the worst scenario to a better situation, can that institution be allowed to do that justice? Like the members of the National Assembly, who are the people there, the so-called governors we have in the system, who are there? It's not easy to take away a kind of an old narrative. Most of these people who have benefited much, endlessly, pushing us back to the background, they know the problem is. For example, if I may ask, the problem region is not because people there are not sound, but because of the few elites benefit much, so much, in the so-called in publishing mental manipulation of these young ones and make them in a situation that they hate a Western education. The question I'm asking, but if the children are out there in all parts of the world acquiring the same Western education, so we need to go back and show that I strongly believe in the position of Ndibe. The election itself is not even best. The best is to assemble a group of people that will be able to discuss how this nation can move forward. But based on this particular system we have, even if Jesus Christ comes into the system, I am telling you, the same evil structures will still and do anyway to pull them down, to pull him down. Thank you for now.
All right, thank you, Sonny. We appreciate that. Okay, what we're going to do is we get maybe 3 questions and comments, and then you can respond, and then we'll get another 3. So, CM, go ahead.
Thank you, Rudolf. And then good afternoon from UK, Professor Ndibe. I've listened attentively. In fact, I've been here since morning waiting for this appointed time so that I do not miss out. I read you every week. You said Nigeria has the best engineers in the world, the best doctors in the world, the best scientists in the world, or one of the best professors in the world, and one of the best writers in the world, of which you are one. So the challenge I want to throw to you, I hope you do not turn it down, is, have you considered, probably with Rudolf, Rudolf, Chimamanda, Chikunigwe, Chido, Onumah, and you know your cast, all of you, say a yearly, because Nigeria is begging for survival in every sphere of human activity. Yearly, you organize a writers' workshop or anything just to encourage, so that we can have the next after, so that we could have the next Achebes, Shoyinkas, and all the coming through. If you have taken the challenge, I will thank you. But if you haven't, I will say why not. Thank you.
All right. One more, then he will answer, and then we'll let the people whose questions have been answered or comments responded to go, so that we let new people come in. Alaro, go ahead.
It's a pleasure. It's an honor to be around you, and I commend you for all your achievements. So you said basic leadership and foresight to bring knowledge together from across the board, from across the country, but only through an interim government, which is what you started out with. But what I would like for you to realize is that all the nations will now praise. All those nations will now glorify, like the UK, which you glorified through the award you just did, all had their own difficulties to come above, which they accomplished by not giving up. That's a comment in a way. We have to correct the consumptive principle and implement a productive society. And with this productive society, will Nigeria have a chance? Now, I therefore agree with you, with your solutions, but I believe that more in your solutions, they are only visible through a leadership by Peter Obi, which in a way you commend and in other ways you condemn. With all these great forces that we have across the board and all these great leaderships that we do have across the board, which you also a part of, and now beg of you to be more constructive and more positive minded in a way that just a minute.
That's
okay.
life.
Okay, now I would like for you to be more constructive and be more positive minded because your words mean a lot. Okay?
All right.
And preach more that we can bring Nigeria forward.
Okay.
The negative aspect, we're going to hear it every day. So I commend you and I thank you.
Thank you so much. Okay,
All
you
right.
can take the question.
Sure. All right. By the way, thank you very much for. Can you hear me well?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Okay. So thank you very much for this engagement. So to respond to Sonny first in the order in which people made comments or asked questions. Sonny, I absolutely agree with you. That's actually my point. A lot of people have begun to cast Peter Obi as magic man. All right. Elect Peter Obi and all our problems will disappear. And part of why I said that an Obi presidency would be disastrous is that Nigeria is fundamentally askew. Okay. The country has gone, has not been founded, if you understand what I mean. So, as Sonny rightly said, if you put in an angel to run Nigeria, the angel is going to be undermined, subverted at every turn. We have a country where most of our resources are stolen by men and women who never pay a price, who never go to jail. We have a country where terrorists can go into a church, war, and kill dozens of people, and the government just issues a statement and says it's ISWAP, the Islamic State of West Africa province. We have a state where a young woman is barbecued in public, and there is no trial almost several weeks later. Nobody is held to account. We have a state where there are no roads to speak of, where there is no running water, where trash is not picked up. So we have a country that is an open toilet. So when Nigerians travel, they stop anywhere. I'm sorry, Alero, but we cannot be blind to the reality that we don't have a country. And so with all his best intentions, an Obi presidency ultimately will be marginally better than what we've seen before, but is still fundamentally incapable of addressing the issues and the crisis in Nigeria. So Sonny's point is well taken that we need institutional bedrock for the country. a country like the United States, or if you take any country in the world that is a productive, self-sustaining society, already has within itself shock absorbers, cushions, so that even if you have a terrible president for 8 years, in the end, the institutions in that country are able to absorb the damage that this president might make. In Nigeria, you had an Obasanjo who authorized somebody like Adedibo to go and sack a governor, Ladoja, from his office. The governor had to jump through the window to run. You had an Obasanjo who empowered Chris Oba to go and use the Nigerian police to abduct a governor. Okay? And nobody has been held to account. So we don't have a country. And that's where I start fundamentally. But we need our institutions. We no longer need big men. We don't need strong men. We need institutions. That's the mistake that Nigerians often make. They think if we could have a Rollins kind of person and he will shoot a bunch of people, then everybody will sit up. Nigeria is past that level of dysfunction. And it's as if you look at it. I watched a video of some university students who went to see the Nigerian Minister for Education. And they reminded the minister that his own children were going to school abroad and classes, they were going to classes. Meanwhile, in Nigeria, university lecturers have been on strike since February 14. And the minister got up and walked out on them. So Nigeria, as Achebe said in The Trouble with Nigeria, is actually run by people who are strangers. So they reap from the country and they take what they've stolen abroad and they have a good life there. If you remember, or maybe I'll respond to this when I come to Alero. So I agree that what we need is to build institutions. And the best way to build those institutions, at this point, no president can do that. Okay? The best way to do that is to start from the very foundational moment and say, okay, we're going to decide what Nigeria means. First of all, the first question is actually whether Nigerians have the stamina and the inclination to stay together. If they don't, you cannot force people to live together if they don't want the marriage, okay? If we establish that we have the stamina and the intent to be together in Nigeria, then we have to decide the terms of engagement, the terms of those relationships. And that's why I said that what we need at this point is a conference, a national government, not a conference, but a government of experts, if you like, who will begin then to determine the shape of the country in different sectors, in education, in terms of job creation, in terms of the judiciary, in terms of law enforcement, and so on and so forth. So let me go to CM, who says that Nigeria has some of the best, echoed my argument that Nigeria has some of the best and has thrown a challenge, Rudolf, to you, to Chido, to Chimamanda, and to a bunch of us. Do we go to give workshops in Nigeria? CM, the answer is yes and no. Okay. I do a lot of public speaking in Nigeria. And I was a Fulbright scholar in Nigeria. I taught for a year at the University of Lagos. It was a traumatic experience to get into the classroom. UNILAG did, some of the deans at UNILAG did their best to make sure that that I wasn't there teaching, but I stuck it out. It's something that I will account in a book at some point. So I do go to literary festivals in Nigeria and elsewhere in Africa. I'm invested. I mentor some writers, young writers in Nigeria and elsewhere in Africa. But it is not easy. Writers are not extremely well-paid people, okay? In order to do a writing workshop, you have to hire a venue, right? Or you have to have somebody who will lend you a big house, okay? You have to bring people there. You have to have books for them to read. You have to provide them computers to write on and so on and so forth. So there's a lot that goes into it. So it's not easy. I know that Chimamanda for years now has run a creative writing workshop. I have participated in some in Uganda, in Kenya, in Nigeria, but I don't run one regularly. And trust me, I've talked to Nigerian governments, several governments, to start such workshop. I have offered my services for free, but our leaders are not interested in investing in the development of young people. That's the truth. And their own young ones are abroad. You know, I can tell you a story of going to Lincoln University, which Zeke and Nkrumah attended years ago to give a talk. And I appeared there to find out that there was a scholarship scheme or some kind of exchange between Bielsa State and the university in Pennsylvania. Every kid who was sent there was the son or daughter of a top government official in Bielsa. And when I spoke to the kids, I told them that their parents had wrecked Nigeria. And I said, I'm not holding it against you. I said, but you have a moral duty when you get your education to go and begin to undo the damage that your parents had made in Nigeria. So I do my best, in other words, CM, whenever I get invited, but I have to pay my flight ticket. I put myself in a hotel. I have to rent a hotel room to do a workshop. So the much that I do is that when I'm invited, I go, right? I get paid to speak in America, to speak elsewhere in the world. When I typically go to Nigeria, I offer myself for free, but I would insist that people buy my flight ticket because I can't deprive my family in order to go give a workshop. So Alaro, part of what you said is the need is that other countries that we glorify went through difficulties to attain and accomplish what they have. That's sort of the rhetoric that I hear from some Nigerians who want to defend the indefensible. Our country is not defensible. Okay? I have had people say to me, Rome was not built in a day, to excuse the dysfunction of Nigeria, the absolute tragedy in Nigeria. And what I respond to them is, we can excuse the people who built Rome if they took decades to build Rome. Now we have a template. We should not build our own Rome as many decades as it took the original founders of Rome to build Rome, because they've already provided us with a template. In a sense, we can build our own Rome in a day, in a metaphoric day, right? You take the story of the Emir or the Sheikh of Dubai. There's a story, an interview he had on 60 Minutes, a US program, and I encourage Nigerians to go watch it. So you see what vision does. And this man says, just about 30 something years ago, he said, I sat down and I felt that my country should have the best. And Leslie Stahl, the CBS reporter, says, what do you mean the best? And the man said, I wanted us to have the best in education, the best in finance, the best in technology. And guess what? Today, our people troop to Dubai because Dubai has the best. And what I tell them is that it is men and women like themselves who have created the societies that we want to bask in. Okay? And so what we have is almost pretend leaders. In fact, it's not almost. We have pretend leaders. And so typically you ask a Nigerian leader, what are you going to do if you get office? And he says something like, I'm going to move the nation or the state forward. It is the laziest possible thing, because actually sometimes you don't move forward, you want to move back. Because if there's a ditch in front, you want to move back. Okay? So the whole idea of I'm going to provide the dividends of democracy, I want to move the nation forward, and so on, is just a sense of laziness. And that is part of why Peter Obi continues to resonate today, because Peter Obi seems to Nigerians to articulate the problems of the country and to proffer solutions that, in a way that Nigerians find exciting. So no, I want there to be a productive country, not one that consumes. Ken Saro-Wiwa famously said that the world has become a global village, but that Nigerians, in their obsession with consumption, have become global idiots. You know, and in a lot of ways, that is what we prove again and again and again. We have leaders who live for their stomachs only. Okay, a leader who will tell you that he's wearing a $50,000 wristwatch, and meanwhile his country is a slum. Even the state house is a slum. You know, and so let's not make a prescription to be positive about a country that has nothing positive going in it. The only thing positive in Nigeria is actually what I call the staying power of Nigerians. The fact that in the face of all kinds of difficulties, Nigerians are able to wake up every day and to recreate their lives. Okay, it's a miracle. And the fact that there is creativity happening in that country, that you have great music coming out of Nigeria, you have great writers coming out of Nigeria, you have, just people holding up. So every year, if I were a Nigerian leader, I will give national honors, not to governors and heads of states and chiefs of staff and so on. I'll give it to those who push trucks. So the traders at Alaba market and other markets. So the market women who grow and sell tomatoes and so on. Those are the ones who sustain this country that is every day killed by its political leadership. And we must call them out. We must call them out.
All right, thank you so much. So what we're going to do now is I will beg, if your question is answered already, you give us room. You can watch on live stream, any of the stream social media places, Facebook, YouTube, so that we can let more people come in and have opportunity to ask questions. Okay, so please, I will now call on Declan to ask your question.
Hi, Rudolf and Okey. Nice to see you both.
Yes.
I guess I have more of a comment to reinforce what you've been talking about in terms of some of the spectacular talent that is in Nigeria, and just how Nigeria doesn't really benefit it from that compared to all these Nigerian medical professionals in the United States, for example, who are educating the next generation of American doctors. And it's Nigeria is such an interesting place because it's so large in terms of population, and the demographics are so robust. And every other country in the world, China is a really good example, is able to tap into that, right? And so part of the reason China is able to make such strides is they've got so many people, and so they're going to have, with all the billions of people they have, they're going to have math geniuses. And all they need to do is identify this talent and then just pipeline it, and then that will help. The future China. Similar to the way the United States is so large, and we tapped into all these technical experts who we put into government, and they were able to kind of craft U.S. institutions, despite the average American not really understanding or appreciating that. So Nigeria is an example of a place where all of these people exist, and as soon as they can, they flee and live an amazing life, outside the country. So that's kind of the observation that reinforces, I think, your point.
Okay, thank you. Let me go to Chido. Chido is my co-host. He's been traveling. I saw him now. I forgot about him. So Chido, I don't know where you are, what airport where you are, but come on, have your say.
Thank you, Rudolf. I'm in the main airport in SH country.
All right.
Sorry, yeah. Hi, okay, it's good to see you, Declan. I was supposed to be part of the show, but as Rudolf said, I've been traveling. I just came in from Kempi, Nasarawa State, to Abuja Airport, and now the flight has been delayed for another hour. We hope we don't get to Lagos by midnight. But that's the story of our life. I just wanted to find out, and I've been in and out of the program, and my question may have been addressed, whether directly or through comments. And I've been following Okey's fantastic intervention in Nigeria. I've had conversations with other people about it in terms of people were looking at the role of writers in this.
Okay, Chido.
I can hear you. I wanted the announcement so I can continue, but maybe I'll just try to talk. But
yeah, please talk through it.
Yeah, the question is, there is an existential crisis, and you and I on the same. There is an agreement on this in terms of what needs to be done. I do not believe that any of the presidential candidates currently in this process can bring about the kind of the vision we have for a new Nigeria, not because some of them do not have the capacity or the ability to bring about change, but because of the structure and nature of our society. For you would have heard this said over and over again, the country at independence was rigged to fail. It was set up to fail. And we've not made any move since 1959 when we got the prime minister, then 60 at independence, up until now to challenge that. For me, one of the most fundamental questions about Nigeria was the one raised by the late Chief Bola Ige, which I used on one of my books, Nigeria is Negotiable, which is to say, there are two basic questions we need to ask ourselves as Nigerians. One is, do we want to remain together as one people? If the answer to that question is yes, under what condition? Yes. I think the fundamental question we face today is existential. We don't have any. We're just people, and people just go from one place to the other. So my challenge now is what role, and Declan raised an important question. When we look at the data statistics, we talk about Nigerians are perhaps the best diaspora community in America and all that. It's because it's the best of Nigeria that leaves the country.
Yeah.
So what do you expect? In other countries, I think it's not their best. The best of the people there don't live. My generation, your generation of Nigerians, all those of them who went into academia, they are all in US, British, American,
Saudi Arabia, whatever.
Canadian universities. These are people who ought to be in the country. Mm-hmm. So even those who govern us do not believe in the country. Then the question is, or the challenge before us is, how do we ensure, as writers, and the foundation of every nation, whether you look at the US where you are, the likes of Thomas Paine and so on, have our writers been able to, and I think you were the Guardian many years ago when the conversation about Nigeria, there was this debate in the Guardian between the likes of Edwin Madunaju and Gigi Dara and the late Professor Bala Usman. Have we done enough to even say, this is the nature of the society we want to create, the vision of that society as writers, as contributors, so that whether it's young people, whether it's those civil society or anywhere, so that people can run with that. I think that's the challenge before us as writers, as activists.
Yes.
All right. Thank you, Chido. Let's go.
Rudolf.
Yeah.
I must intervene and say that Ifoma, the lone woman I see in the room, should speak.
Yeah, I was about to go to her because it appears as if she's leaving or about to leave. Ifoma, over to you. Unmute yourself, please. Good.
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay, sorry. So you might echo a little bit because I'm in a room by myself. Okay, good morning, good afternoon. I don't know where you are.
Yeah, good afternoon.
But I've been listening in and out. I'm sure you see me walking around on my walk. Mm-hmm. And I didn't listen to the whole program, but I've been picking up some pieces and, putting up together. And I have some questions, and you might have been answered, I don't know. But this is some of the things I said yesterday in the program. And I still want to repeat that because I see that none of these presidential candidates are just answering this question of insecurity in Nigeria. And this is one of the main issues that our problem in Nigeria at this point. A country where you don't have security, you're trying to attract investors, the same thing I said yesterday. How are we going to solve that? I have not heard Tinubu and Atiku, they haven't even told us what they're going to do for us as a Nigeria. Only Obi that is actually saying something. Also, the issue of electricity. I think he said something about industrialization. And I'm asking the list of the problem or the list of the things that can help to contribute to that industrialization is electricity. Obasanjo, we have Obasanjo, Buhari, Yaradua, all these presidents. And up to now, we don't have that electricity in Nigeria. I have a cousin who is in manufacturing industry. The last time I spoke to him, he told me that he is gradually folding up because he cannot sustain the price of fuel to sustain his industry. What are we doing about that? And what do you think we can do about that? And find out one more thing. I have a lot of questions for you.
Wow.
A lot of questions. But one more thing. Nigeria is borrowing money to service our loans. What have we done with the money we have borrowed? All the money we have borrowed from other countries. What have we done with the money in Nigeria? I haven't seen nothing because it's like we are getting worse every day. And there is no accountability. Does it mean that we're going to forget about all the money that has been stolen or looted from our country and then move on as if nothing happened and wait for the next president to come? Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, thank you. You want me to take one more person, then you can answer?
Sure.
Okay. All right. Femi, go ahead.
Good afternoon, Dr. Rudolf and Professor Ndibe. I'm an avid follower of your columns, including, I don't know if you still do some in Swan or thereabout.
I actually do a podcast now called the Offside Musings Podcast. So my columns, I do a podcast and then there's an accompanying column on the same subject.
All right.
Yeah.
So permit me to use this opportunity to remember Professor Pius Adesomi, the late professor, one of the most erudite, most amazing brains that Nigeria has ever produced, and definitely one of your contemporaries as well. It was he that mentioned the fact that Africa is the forward the world needs to face. But and pivoting to that as well, I tried to dig up this this comment from Mandela, wherein he said that the world would not respect Africa until Nigeria ends that respect. Now, the reasons why this two different comments are germane to discussion for today, to me, is concerning the fact that, for example, when you look at the issue of Botswana as a country itself, the so-called the little miracle of Africa, it's called. The contribution of Nigerian professionals to what that country has become today tells us a lot about the fact that it's not just our leaders, but even we as a people. Because for me, I know we seem to know all the problems about Nigeria. Everybody seems to have a problem, know the problem and the solution to Nigeria. But one thing I continue to ask myself, especially considering the fact that myself and yourself have a certain history in terms of the fact that you were born in Ogongola, Yola, I think. I was born in Kaduna. And I recall that, and I've mentioned this, I shared it before with them on the forum, that I remember going to take this thing you do after you pass the NDA exams. Professor, I was one of the top candidates for entry into NDA. What I saw there mimics what you said you saw in terms of when you were at Columbia. The kinds of thing I saw in 1997, thereabout. I was a 17-year-old young boy. I'm dating myself now. It's traumatic when you understand the fact that this thing goes from, sometimes it's from bottom up, but I believe it's from, I think it's from bottom up, because the leaders do not fall from the sky. And that's why I also understand the fact that it's more of a structural problem. And for me, if we do not first become a nation before we're a country, because a country is just a mere geographical expression, like someone once described. If we do not first become a nation, there's no way we can become Nigeria. And which is where I align with you. But basically, where my question is pivoting to is what do you think we can do beyond just trying to bring together eggheads, if you will? Because my thinking is we better restructure first. It's, I mean, call it whatever one wants to call it, whether we need to discuss the terms of our terms of engagement, send the terms of engagement. Do we want to become a country? Because even if we divide, South Sudan,
Yeah.
seceding from Sudan, and Eritrea seceding from Ethiopia are case studies for what is likely to happen, even because we know ourselves, our division goes even down to the most minuscule village or hamlet in Ogun State or somewhere in Imo. So my thinking is, what do you think about beyond all of this restructuring? How do you think we can change our mindset as a people?
Good.
Okay, Femi, thank you. Okay, hold on. Okay, I think I don't want Ovie to leave. He's outside. I think he might want to go out. I need to hear him. I need him to speak. So just one more, then you can.
Okay, sure.
Okay, Ovie, go ahead.
Thank you for reading my facial expression.
So is the village what now?
Village athletics.
Oh, village athletics.
Village athletics.
Okay.
Yes. My question is: will you agree with me that in every given society, the easiest thing to do is to criticize, and the second easiest thing to do is to protest? To which anybody can do that, regardless of your level of education or your level of awareness. But will you not agree with me that inability for me and you to organize and put those criticism into action is where we have failed or failing?
Wonderful.
That's what I'm.
Okay, go ahead.
All right. Declan, it's such a delight to see you. I bet from Nairobi, right? Oh, good. So absolutely, I agree with you that part of the crisis in Nigeria is Nigeria's, it's a point that Chido made, that we have both capital flight out of Nigeria, and capital flight you can actually contain or deal with, withstand the consequences of it. But when you have brain drain, which is a peculiar and particular pathology of Nigeria, that we're a country happy to send our best and brightest to other countries. And during the military regime of Babangida, he used to regard professors, academics, and so on as disgruntled elements. So the faster they left the country, the happier he became, because the space was then emptied of these disgruntled elements who disturbed his peace to be able to basically steal the nation to extinction. And so you have a country that sends its best and brightest into exile. I remember years ago, Wole Soyinka was in exile for the second time in his life, and he gave a talk at the university in Massachusetts. So I happened to be there, and I stood at the back of this packed hall with Ife Amadume. And as Soyinka spoke, Ife Amadume sort of, nudged me, and she said to me that the tragedy of Nigeria was for her at that moment reducible to the fact that Wole Soyinka is in exile and that Abacha was presiding over Nigeria. So it could, it told the story in that kind of microscopic way. And not only do we send our best outside, we send our best money, our earnings outside of the country. And it's not a story that started today. Hello? Hello? Okay.
Yeah, go
So
ahead.
we
Go ahead. Sorry.
so we
Yeah,
send
go
we
ahead.
send
We
our
can hear
best
you.
outside of the country. And I remember years ago in 2001, 2002, I became a naturalized American citizen. The US government, through its Fulbright program, sent me to teach at Lagos State University. But once I got that award, they said that in Nigeria, classes were often very iffy. So if they send you to Nigeria, they have you adopt a research project in case you arrived in Nigeria and universities were on strike so that you have something that you were doing. We arrived in Nigeria and staff of the embassy came to pick us up and told us that LASU staff and faculty started a strike just 2 days before we arrived. That strike lasted 3 months. So we offered, my wife and I offered ourselves to Unilag to teach. We could have sat at home, quote unquote, doing our research. But I wanted to give something of myself. I wanted to encounter students of English and to sort of teach them the skills that I have. The insult that we faced at Unilag. So there was a dean at Unilag who first of all said, the English department was desperate to have me. The art department wanted my wife. But this dean said, why should they take people who were rejected by LASU? And this was all in a memo. Then the chairs of the department wrote to him and said, no, they were not rejected by LASU. LASU was on strike, so they offered themselves to us. And this man then said, well, if we're going to have them, that he wanted the US government to officially repost us to Unilag. So we went to the embassy. The embassy wrote us letters, copied to him, saying that we were now sent officially to Unilag. This man read the letter and said, no, they should not write to us and copy him, that they should write to him and copy us. So we went back to the US embassy and we said, hey, write to the big man and just copy us. So they did that. And the man's next reaction was that before we could start to teach, that he wanted us to meet his director of academic planning to interview us and see if we were qualified to teach at Unilag. So at that point, I used an expletive to the head of the Department of English who was telling me this and who, of course, described him as a fool. So I said to my wife, that's it, we're going to do our research. But one day, the English department called me and said, we're waiting for you. We've given you 2 classes. So I said, hey, I thought you were waiting for me to go and take an exam to prove that I could teach at Unilag. And they said, forget that fool. They had given us classes to teach. At that point, as I was relating this story to somebody, he told me of a Nigerian who was a vice president at a pharmaceutical company in America, a PhD in pharmacy. The man was making millions in compensation every year. And he decided that he wanted to return to Nigeria to teach. He wanted to take a semester every year to go and give of himself in Nigeria. So he wrote a letter to the university where he did his first degree in Nigeria and said, here is who I am. I'm a senior vice president at this major pharmaceutical company in America. I'm offering to come every year to come 1 semester and teach for you for free. And he did not hear back from the head of department. The next time he went to Nigeria, he went to this man's office to see him. He signed the paper. This man kept him waiting for hours. And finally, when he was ushered into the man's office, the man said, hey, how can I help you? So he said to the man, I wrote you a letter offering to come and teach here. And the man said to him, hey, you can't just walk in here and ask to teach. There is procedures. So he said at that point, he said to the man, okay, please hold your classes. I'm going back to America. So this is a highly qualified Nigerian. So I tell people, Obama was president in America for 2 terms, one of the popular American presidents. If Obama were in Nigeria, the best Obama would have is to be somebody's chief of staff or speechwriter. And even at that, if Obama spoke in a certain way, okay, to say the head of state, to the president, people will say, "Ah, God, this man is taking too much." Or look at, does he think that because he blows grammar? Do you understand? So we are suspicious of talent. We reject talent. We accept mediocrity in our country. And it's at every point. So you go to your local government area, go for that matter to your hometown, and you offer to lead the town, to bring the benefit of your learning, your enlightenment to the town. People will say, how old are you? Look at this one. You think he speaks English and so on and so forth. So there's this suspicion that we have, this allergy, if you like, we have to ideas. Okay? So Declan, you actually make a very astute point that we are not tapping into, first of all, we drive our best talent abroad, and then we reject their offer even to come to Nigeria and give the benefit of their experience, of their training for free sometimes. So Chido, I agree with you about the existential crisis. Bola Ige got it right. That's the central question, which, as I said, we have not answered. And all our thinkers, all our major writers have gone back to that point. As I said in my sensitive interview with Rudolf Wole Soyinka at a talk at Harvard, said that there is a space called Nigeria, but a nation did not inhere in that space. There is no nation in that space. And Achebe years ago told me in my first interview with him that the Nigerian nation had not been founded. And if we go back to Achebe's novel, in Things Fall Apart, for example, there's a very eye-opening moment in the early parts of the novel after Okonkwo has been found guilty, right, of bribery and corruption. And the Umuofia community meets in Lagos to decide how to respond to that. The elder says, we are strangers in this land. If good comes to it, let us have our share. But if bad comes to it, let it go to the owners of the land who know which gods to appease. So Lagos is part of Nigeria. The Umuofia people are part of Nigeria, but they see themselves as strangers in this part of Nigeria. And they have no principled objection to corruption. All they want is let these consequences of corruption go to the owners of the land. So the whole ethic, Nigerians speak about, I remember as a young person, whenever a head of state visited a state, the elders will read an address and they will ask for their fair share of the national cake. So from the very moment of the foundation of this troubled space we call Nigeria, we saw Nigeria as a cake, as amala, a bowl of amala, which we had to eat. Nobody saw this as something that we had to produce. As a nation, we had to produce. Nobody said, let us bake a cake. We assumed that the cake was already baked and we had to get our share, or perhaps even an inordinate share of that cake. And so we have eaten our country to stupor and to extinction and to a crisis. So part of why I said that we need an emergency interim government is that we need to begin to address these questions of vision, of ideology, of ethic. How do we envision Nigeria? How do we envision it? Why is it that in some countries, people are willing to die for their country? How many people are willing to die for Nigeria? And the people who are least willing to die for Nigeria are its leaders. When you have leaders who have no stake in the country, their children don't go to school in that country, they themselves will never permit themselves to be treated in a Nigerian hospital if they are sick, or for their families to be treated in a Nigerian hospital if they are sick. They will never take a vacation in their country. So it goes to the question that Ifeoma raised, the question of security. I was just in Nigeria in April for a month, in fact, 5 weeks. And I stayed in Anambra, my home state, for more than that, for most of that time. Nigerians who lived in Abuja, who lived in Port Harcourt, who lived in Abuja, were calling me and saying, are you not afraid? And I said to them, why should I be afraid to be in my hometown? Shouldn't it be the safest place for me to ever be? Okay. So when I go to my hometown, I walk around. I walk on foot. I go to any place I want. If I want, I get in a keke and ride around. But people see this as some kind of eccentricity, some kind of extreme danger. And I'm saying when you inhabit a space, when you come from a place, and as a citizen of that place, you are seen as taking an unusual risk in visiting that space. How do you expect a foreign investor to come in? Okay, it doesn't make sense. And you also raise the question of electricity, Former. So we have a country where Obasanjo spent $16 billion, okay? And he promised Nigerians that he was, with the Lee Elimoke committee, that he was guaranteeing them regular uninterrupted power supply at the end of 2001, okay? On several occasions in an interview, Obasanjo was asked, are you sure of this commitment? He said, yes, I promise Nigerians on my honor that from basically January 1, 2002, they would enjoy regular uninterrupted power. Lee Elimoke did not say anything about this until about a month to the deadline. Then he granted an interview where he said that they were tasked with producing 4,000 megawatts, not regular uninterrupted power, which Obasanjo has been speaking about. Subsequently, Obasanjo reaffirmed that he meant regular uninterrupted power. December 31st came, there was almost nationwide blackout. It was as if Obasanjo and Lee Elimoke wanted to tell us, we have fooled you guys, okay? We have duped you Nigerians. And then Obasanjo, what did he do? Instead of telling Lee Elimoke that he had failed, he turned around and gave him and members of his committee national honors. And he said they had broken the world record in moving electricity generation from 2,000 megawatts to 4,000 megawatts. Who was there to measure that megawatts? So this was a game that Obasanjo came up with to steal Nigeria's resources, let's be blunt. Okay? And then subsequently, when Yar'Adua took over, there was an investigation by the House of Reps. And they went to places where Obasanjo's government had said that they commissioned a power project and not even a single grain of sand had been moved. And they had paid fully for this project. Obasanjo is walking around today and people see him as a hero. So a few days ago, he said, Nigerian youth should not wait anymore. They should seize this moment, and people are clapping. How come Obasanjo did not remember that? How many young people did Obasanjo promote politically when he was president? And he was an imperial president who could put people in places and who ensured that whichever state or office his party wanted, they seized in a do or die affair. And so the whole idea of making electricity an exclusive federal list in the Constitution is nonsensical. There are states that are capable of doing independent power projects. But to do this, if you did a power project and you generated electricity, you have to feed it to the national grid. And the government in Abuja will then decide, let's say Rivers State produces electricity. They feed it into the grid. The Power Holding Company of Nigeria could decide to send that power to Zamfara State. You have no recourse. You know, so Nigeria is a place that doesn't make sense on so many levels. And that's why I say that the whole idea of holding an election for a space that is nonsensical fundamentally is a mistake. Because Nigerians will continue to renew their hope. Oh, you know, if we put in Peter Obi, our lives will be better. No, your lives will not be better. Marginally, yes. Okay? Marginally, yes. Maybe Obi will end up building some roads. Maybe he will increase electricity supply from 2 hours in a day in some places to 2.5 hours. But that's not where we should be. We need a kind of vision of the leader of Dubai who says, I'm in a hurry And I want my country to have all the things that a modern society ought to have. So let me go to, so Femi, you talked about Mandela's statement. Nigeria should be leading Africa. When Nigeria earns respect, indeed, the Black person in the world will be respected. We're everywhere. And the irony is that when you encounter Nigerians around the world, so I live in the state of Connecticut, okay? And the best neurosurgeon in Connecticut is a Nigerian. And so years ago, just about 5 years ago, we have friends, and the woman needed this surgery, and her doctor told her that the best neurosurgeon to do the surgery was this Nigerian guy. But the Nigerian was booked up for more than a year. And this woman told me the story. I said, he happens to be my friend. That I called him, and he said to me, tell her to call my secretary and to tell my secretary that I said to add her on the calendar. And when this happened, the woman, a white woman, started crying. She couldn't believe her luck. This Nigerian doctor was the highest paid civil servant in the state of Connecticut, more paid than the governor by far, more paid than anybody in this state by far, right? And, so you go in any area, you go to literature, you go to writing. Chimamanda is one of the most highly regarded writers in the world today, okay? And we have, of course, the Venerable Wole Soyinka. We had Achebe, so many high school students have read Achebe and so on. So how come that a country that has produced all this talent mocks around with people who cannot produce their secondary school certificates to be president? How come? Why do we farm out our most important public offices to mediocrities and to dunces and to thieves? Why do we do that? To go again to, I think it's who was it? There's a gentleman, Village Athletics. Has he left?
Yeah, he's gone. Yeah.
Okay, Village Athletics. Say, do I agree that the easiest thing to do is to criticize? It could be the easiest thing to do if you are just doing criticism. But there's something like informed, enlightened criticism. There are people who criticize because, they are Igbo and the person in office is Yoruba, so I just hate the Yoruba, or vice versa. Okay, but there are people who have a certain attuned insight into issues and so on. So we don't have enough of that. We don't have enough of that kind of criticism. And the idea that we can have a distillation of ideas without the critical faculty is false. Critical faculty is key to the distillation of ideas that ultimately fuel development in society. I don't know if there's a question that I missed. So, about money. Again, Informa, you raised the question of money. It's a crisis. So we have a country where we borrow money. We borrow to pay our debt. Okay, we borrow now to pay salaries. And people are talking about elections. And yet, Nigerians look around, we borrow so much. And remember, it was only a few years ago that we received all this huge debt relief. Suddenly, we borrowed so much more, and nobody sees the evidence that that borrowed money was used for anything. But Nigerians are caught paying it. And nobody is saying, stop the presses. Let's find out how this money was spent. Let's find out who stole that money. Let's insist that these people go to jail. So unless you have a country where there is real rule of law, where nobody is too big, and Obasanjo should not be too big to go to jail. Babangida should not be too big to go to jail. Okay? Nobody should be too big to go to jail. But in Nigeria, even if you become a local government chairman, people can't fathom, people can't imagine you going to jail. And if you go to jail at all, I remember years ago, Ibori was in office. I wrote a critical column about Ibori, and a professor who was working for him wrote a rejoinder where he said that Ibori had totally transformed Delta State. The same Ibori, when the EFCC arrested him, said, "Oh, I need to be given my passport to go abroad for medical treatment." I said, if you've totally transformed Delta State, why not seek medical treatment in the state that you have totally transformed? Why are you going abroad for medical treatment? But people don't ask these questions, you see, and we need to start asking those questions.
All right. I don't know. Okay. How long do you have with us?
I have one of the things that I have today is time.
Okay.
I usually don't have time, but today
good. Okay. Now, what I will say, I will get people who have not had the opportunity to ask any question to do so, and then we are going to again ask people who, if your question has been taken care of, you can leave, give room for new people to join. We have a lot of people who are posting their questions on the comment section, and okay, Nneka, next, go ahead.
Okay, thank you, everyone. Mr. Ndibe, thank you so much.
Ndibe.
Oh, thank you, Ndibe. Thank you so much. You brought out so many things. You answered so many questions, and some of the things that you said, I've echoed it in this platform in our previous discussions. Because one of the things that you're saying, if I'm getting it right, and I'm sure that I'm really getting it right, is that when you look at Nigeria, human beings, or we all in Nigeria, really needs to change our mindset. And when you said that, you said it in so many different ways. You made a mention of the professor that went to Nigeria to teach. And then whoever didn't allow him, giving him time to knock on his office and was kind of berating him. And I saw so many people on this platform right now when you were speaking on that. So many people were nodding their head. But I threw the challenge because, and I'm included in it, whenever you're speaking on something like that, some people are nodding their head. But when we are actually put in that position, we replicate the same thing. And that's what I mean by this mindset. And Dr. Damages will agree with me because I have personally spoken to him about this. My own mindset changed from 1986 when I became a Buddhist. You have to always look at yourself. And remembering my grandmother practicing paganism, it says, so what I just said in Igbo language is, when you're pointing one finger to someone, the four fingers you're pointing towards yourself. And that brings us back again to mindset. We need to change our mindset, the way we do things. And again, you did mention about we respecting ourselves. We haven't been able to do that. You also said we are sending our best to a different country. We are doing both ways. Some of us that we are here, we have acquired that knowledge. We want to go back and share the same thing with people in Nigeria. But again, due to us not having light, if some of us want to come back to Nigeria and start a full-fledged clinical, you bring back this equipment, they will all blow up because there's no light. That's one thing. And then, and when you discuss even with your fellow Nigerians that you see here in United States, I really want to go back to Nigeria, the first thing that will come out of their mouth, oh, you will be killed. Okay, you will be killed. I could be killed anyway. I could be killed here in New Jersey anytime. So I don't think, and I keep on saying that we have to give something a trial. And I always said that The lotus flower grows from the mud. Nigeria, the way I'm looking at it right now, is so muddy. But I truly believe that the lotus flower is going to grow from it one day. And so that's why I keep saying our mindset. You were absolutely right when you said that we should first of all deal with the constitution. What is it that we want in Nigeria? But the way that things is right now, for me, I'm going to continue to send my daimoko to Obi and his running mate, hoping that let's start from there to begin to probably, with all our efforts, continue to support him, because he's actually going into the presidency with nothing. And so we all need to support from our own little way. And I don't want anybody to feel like, well, I'm not in power, so there's nothing that I can do. There is something that all of us can do as a human being. Then the last thing, before I give somebody a chance to speak on, is that Femi said that leadership doesn't just fall from the Iroko tree. It starts from somewhere. And what did he mean by that? In my own analysis, what he was saying is that we need to raise our kids to know right and wrong. And if they have that integrity, when they get to become a leader, they will always remember that integrity. That's what it means. Because when people were saying Buhari, 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 I said, well, Buhari doesn't have 5 heads to rule Nigeria. We are all in this mess together. So we shouldn't single Buhari out. I don't know him, but at the same time, I feel like each and every one of us are contributing what is happening to Nigeria in so many ways, but we're not looking at it that way.
Okay, thank you, Neka. Thank you so much. Emeka Onyagwa, I know I want to introduce you because you work with Okey on the podcast, and I don't know if you have a comment or you want to talk about the podcast before we go to Jude. And please, we still have a lot of questions that people are sending through the comment sections, and we still want few people here who have had the chance to talk to Okey, so please give room for some people to come in to be able to interact with Okey. All right, go ahead, Emeka. You have to unmute yourself, Emeka. You
haven't muted. You haven't unmuted yourself.
Emeka, you run a podcast. You should be.
Yeah. Oh my gosh.
Okay, Emeka cannot do it. Okay, Jude, go ahead. We'll figure out what's.
Okay, all right. Sorry, I think I can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Can you hear me now? Sorry,
Okay,
sorry. I was trying to work on stuff for this weekend. This week. So if you guys can hear me, that's great. I think it's great. People have a platform to just come out there and passionately talk about the way they feel about Nigeria. I think it's fantastic. So kudos to Dr. Damages for that, and kudos to every other person doing that. Is better than doing something very negative. You just come in, talk, and people might learn something, and you can feel that passion. But overall, I think it's fantastic. It's something similar to what we do in terms of the podcast. And yes, I'm here to also talk about our podcast. I think for those of you who don't know, Okey particularly has been chased around Nigeria a little bit. Every time he has to go to Nigeria, he has to be careful because the DSS have a habit of having a conversation with him that lasts a couple of days. For those that don't know, so the same way it happened with his column as well. It was very difficult to put out the column out there. Even when it was on Sahara Reporters, it wasn't really a Sahara Reporters column. It was actually, I believe, for the Guardian, if I'm not wrong.
It was the Guardian initially, and then for the Sun newspaper.
There we go. So he has a tough time, just like a lot of people who genuinely want to speak out and speak up for people who don't have a voice. So that's what we do, and that's essentially what Dr. Rudolf is doing out here. So it's we could throw back and forth. I don't think in terms of this segment we have something in particular you'd like me to give my opinion on, but overall I think it's just we're all talking about it, we're all taking a look at it, and people are hopeful. And I think it's spectacular. I think it's great that people are hopeful, but there's also a level of realism that needs to be attached to that hopefulness. What can happen under the current system that we have? And those are the conversations those are the conversations we need to have. But like I said, the unbridled, um, power and passion and this thing. Even though a lot of us are not living in Nigeria, I always have to prefix that because I call it the yeomen, the cowboys, and the inits, the tea people come in and start telling people, in America, and yada 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 yada, whatever. This is not the reality on the ground and what people are facing. It's a very different circumstance. I was also in Nigeria 8 days. The same period Oke was in Nigeria as well. I was supposed to even go to Amobia in Oke's hometown. And my mom would not let me leave Enugu. so my mom kicked me out of the house at 6 a.m. in the morning on Monday. I think it was Monday. My flight was 12:20. My mom kicked me out by 6 a.m. So scared and so to mothers this thing, no matter what it is, the mother's love. So you have so much the same way okay feels the same way a lot of people are like even people in Enugu and even me I'm from Enugu and even me sitting down in Enugu like I didn't feel that way. And even when I asked them questions, when I asked my mother questions, um I didn't get the answer of impending doom, like cut off your head and all that stuff. I didn't get that. But she didn't want that for me, like get out. So I had to sleep at the airport for like 5 hours uh, prior to my flight, by the way. And that day, mind you, it was about, I think, roughly about 10, 12 flights to Lagos. This was a Monday, mind you, the sit at home order. It was at least, I think, 8 flights to at least Abuja. I didn't count the other flights to other places. I know they have like some problems with European Airways internationally and all that stuff. But the point is, you had a lot of flights. And yeah, I counted 2 private jets leaving Enugu that day, by the way. FYI. I don't know who they were for, but I saw 2 private jets in Enugu that day as well. So, it's all that conversation. We all sit down, we all should conversate. We all should be self-aware. Most of us don't live in the country. It's easy to say all these superlatives. Oh, in this country, but we don't live there. So the different reality people have to face. A very simple thing that, because I always say I'm a history person. One of my favorite history people is Dan Carlin. That's Dan and Calin. In case you want to ever look for him, he does hardcore history. So I always take up his quotes, even though he has a history degree. He'll tell you he's not a historian. He would talk about a lot of things. Sometimes he gets them right, sometimes he gets them wrong. But one key point about Nigeria is um, a deliberate thing was that they took out history, any kind of history teaching in Nigeria. So we don't, for the last, and this is not current or the last 10, this is something that has gone on for the last 50 years plus prior to the British even leaving the country. So you have a situation where you have a whole bunch of people who don't know where they are from, who don't know where they are, but they think they know where they are going to. So it's kind of, to me, this is just my own, it's kind of a bizarre way of interacting with people. You don't know where you're from. You don't know. You think you're Igbo or Yoruba. I'm not even Yoruba. A lot of times, I can tell you Yoruba people more about their culture than I can, than they can rather. Um, and it's just mostly from being somebody that grew up in Lagos and also studied history. But there's no excuse for that. So I say all this to say that in our conversations, we need to have a level of balance and self-awareness of where we all are and where we are coming from and where we want to be. So that's what I'll say for now. I'm
All right.
sure.
All right. Thank you, Emeka. Thank you so much. I agree. Okay, Jude, what's your comment or question for Caine?
Yeah, good morning, everybody, and good afternoon, wherever you are. Good evening. Well, mine is more of a comment than question. I just have a few things to comment. Yeah, we see many of us that are abroad, or many Nigerians abroad that are doing very, very well, which otherwise, if they had been in Nigeria, would have probably most of those talent that they are exhibiting now in their various countries or domicile, they would have not had that opportunity because Nigeria is a country that kills and suppresses the talent of its citizens instead of giving them good environment to thrive. And also Nigeria, I wouldn't say that Nigeria is sending out his best, no, but Nigeria is rather pushing out people who would have otherwise been her best. Because I, myself, for instance, who is here in the United States, I studied in University of Nigeria in Nsukka, and I read graphic design. I knew many students who were in school at my time, very bright students, both those in medicine, those in all departments, very bright students, better than me. And most of them are still languishing in Nigeria. Most of them are driving Okada. Both of those people, and imagine if those people are given the opportunity or had the opportunity I had to travel America or travel any part of the world, they would still be the people that will be shining. So there are so many languages, so many talents in Nigeria that are being killed, that are being suppressed, that instead of the government of Nigeria providing environment for this talent to thrive, for these people to actualize their God-given potential, Nigeria is the government of Nigeria has deliberately been subjugating them, been suppressing them, been annihilating them. It's just a shame. It's so sad when I look at it each time. I'll have to think about this. Okay. Another point. A few days ago or some time ago, Obasanjo was on a national debate trying to let people know about the national speech, making a speech, and was saying why he regretted choosing Atiku as his running mate. It was the worst error he has ever made, and talked about how United States here wrote a memo or something to Nigeria about the people they have listed to investigate in fraudulent practices of stealing Nigerians' money and so on and so forth. And Atiku, his second man, was one of those people on that list. Now, guess what Obasanjo did? Obasanjo said, in all consciousness, I would not allow my second to be investigated. But other people were investigated. Now, the big question is Obasanjo loyal to Nigerian or loyal to his cronies? And this is the attitude of almost every Nigerian that has brought us to where we are today. Many of us are so selfish, egocentric. We don't care about Nigeria. We don't care about the next people. All we care about is our own, myself, and the people that will support me to steal the Nigerian goods. That is the problem one of the major problem we have. And until we get out from this idea of sectionalism, what I call a feel-good syndrome, a situation where you know that your brother or your sister is not going to perform if he's elected in that position, but because it's your brother or your sister, you go ahead and elect him. Until we get out of it, we're not going anywhere. Even if Obi comes there, hopefully he will, I pray. But majority of the people that are working with him now that are going to occupy various positions, many of them, their brothers and sisters are already lining up and already telling them, look, follow Obi. When you get to this place, make sure you get me there. This is the problem we have. This is the problem. Until we begin to think national, we begin to be nationalistic in our thinking, and we begin to consider, apart from being in leadership, even in our little corners, begin to consider the other human being, your fellow Nigerians as human beings. And if you see whatever way you can do to uplift that individual, whether it's your brother or sister, go ahead and do it until we begin to have this attitude. Man, we're not going anywhere. Okay, we're not going to look at our electricity we talk about, for instance. Obasanjo spent billions and billions in providing, that's promised electricity. What do we have in return? Darkness. Billions of dollars. We have darkness. We have darkness. Other yes. Sorry,
round up.
let me round up. Other subsequent governments after have already spent billions and billions of dollars also in electricity. But what do we have in return? Darkness. The reason because of corruption, and then this idea of people wanting to not being loyal to their country, rather they are loyal to themselves and their cronies. We just have to get out of this attitude. May God help us. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, you can respond to.
Okay. Yeah. So thank you very much, those of you who've asked questions or made comments. Neka, I absolutely agree with you. We need both a change of mindset and also to look inward, which is a very critical point that you made, right? One of the things I find most intriguing is that when I encounter Nigerians, they are quite eloquent and voluble about the crisis, the problems in the country. But then quickly you recognize that too many of them are waiting around, as Jules just said, for their turn to eat. I remember, as I said, in 2001, 2002, my wife and I were Fulbright scholars at the University of Lagos. And I wanted to instantiate for my students how to act in an ethical and principled way. So on one occasion, I was driving a car that belonged to my father-in-law to a meeting at a business there. I was going to meet the publisher of business there. I wrote a column for him for a little bit. And the police stopped me at the Oshodi bus stop. And there were 4 policemen, and they accused me of operating a car that was stolen. So I told them that the car wasn't stolen, that it belonged to my father-in-law. And how they determined it was stolen was that they checked the VIN number of the car, which in Nigeria, in most countries, is electronically generated. In Nigeria, all those numbers and letters were handwritten. So the letter 3, the number 3 was missing. So they said, the number 3 is not here, so it's stolen. So I said, no, I was sure it wasn't stolen. But they kept me there for an hour and 40 minutes, going back and forth. Each police officer will come and tell me that if they took me to the station, I'll be so beaten up that my mother would not recognize me. And I said to them that at worst, that I was a suspect in a robbery. I said, you have no right to beat me up. And I said, and so I told them, if you believe that I stole this car, it's actually your duty. I insist that you take me to the station. On one occasion, one Igbo officer came to talk to me, and I spoke to him in Igbo. And in Igbo, I said to him, I didn't steal this car. And he said to me, this is not an Igbo matter, And so we went back and forth. And finally, the Igbo guy came back and said, okay, started speaking to me in Igbo and said, hey, in Igbo, what can you give us? And so that we can let you go. So I told him I didn't want to speak Igbo with him anymore. I said, I'm not going to give you shishi. I said, you can take me to the station. And finally, their boss came in and said to me, did you say this car belonged to your father-in-law? I said, yes. He said, does your wife have children for you? I said, yes. He said, how many? I said, 3. He said, today, so you have 3 children? I said, yes. He said, so this thing, they suit you well. So started to joke. After an hour and 40 minutes, so I turned around and I said to him, do you have children? He said, oh, yeah, I have 10. I said, so the thing, they suit you too? And he said, yeah, I like the thing well. I said, good for you. So he said to me, okay, since your father-in-law, gave you a wife and your wife has children for you, Shebi won't pain you if you spend money for a car that belongs to your father-in-law. So I said to him, but I don't have to spend the money. I said, it's either I stole this car or I didn't. And if I didn't steal the car, I'm not going to give you money. And I said, if I stole the car, it's your duty to take me to the station. And he said to me, so where did you say you were going? I was wearing shorts. I said, I told you an hour and 40 minutes ago that I was going to a meeting at Business Day newspaper. And he said, you the where Nika go meeting? I said, yes. I said, I was teaching at Unilag. I said, that I was wearing shorts to teach, that I wear shorts to weddings, that I wear shorts to church. He said, you the wear shorts go meeting? I said, yes. So he called the other ones and said, this one, in head no correct, making the go. So the next day in class, I told my students, my Unilag students, a story. And all of them said, so you for settle them now? I said, why? They said, oh, don't you see that they delayed you? So I said to them, don't you recognize how warped this situation is? Police officers stop you, accuse you of stealing a car, then you reward them by giving them money. I said, my position will be, if you begged me for money, if I felt like it, I'll give it to you. But you cannot accuse me of being a thief, and then I'll reward you by giving you money. And so the point that Nneka made is appropriate. I always tell people that I want to live up to the standards that I profess in my columns. So I don't take a bribe. I've written about every major politician in Nigeria. And some of the things that people don't even understand is that Obasanjo, I was close to Obasanjo before he became president. He actually came to my traditional wedding in Lagos. So if I wanted money, Obasanjo knew, in fact, Obasanjo saw my father-in-law in Abuja on one occasion and said to my father-in-law that your son-in-law, okay, has never written one good thing about me. So I was in Lagos and my father-in-law told me this. So I said to him, when next you see Obasanjo, tell him that when he does one good thing, I'll write about it. And my father-in-law had a great sense of humor. He laughed and laughed. This was Professor Bab Sapunwa. But for me, when I took the role of a writer, of a social critic, and a social critic who wanted to insist on certain moral and ethical standards, I knew that I could not be found impeachable. So that if any politician could say, hey, I've given Okey Ndibe money, then I will lack the moral authority to speak on corruption. And so I would be a millionaire in every currency that counts if I wanted to be on the take. But if I'm going to write and I'm going to condemn corruption, I better ensure that nobody could expose me as a hypocrite. Okay? But you find on so many levels, you find people, which is why in 2010, the Yaradua government put my name on a list of enemies of the state. Yaradua's people had actually written to me. Yaradua was coming to address the United Nations, and one of his spokesmen wrote to me and said, the president is a big fan of yours and he would like to meet you in New York to explain his vision about Nigeria to you. And I wrote back. So he said that Yaradua considered me a critical stakeholder. That was the term. So I wrote back to him. I said, there's nothing called a critical stakeholder. I said, every Nigerian has an equal stake in Nigeria. And I said that Yaradua himself had agreed that the election that produced him was fraudulent, even though he claimed that it was fraudulent, but he would have still won in a free and fair election, which for me made me more angry than ever. Because if I am friends with Rudolf, so if I know that if I ask Rudolf for $100, he will give it to me, I should not go to Rudolph's wallet and steal $100. And when Rudolph says, okay, why did you steal my money? I say, because I knew you would have given it to me if I had asked you. So I decided to steal it. So if Yaradua knew that he would have won in a free and fair election, and he knew that Obasanjo wanted to steal the elections for him, he should have insisted on grounds of principle that he wanted a free and fair election. That would be a way of respecting Nigerians. So anyway, so I told the spokesman that Yaradua should renounce his mandate, present himself to Nigerians for a real election, and that he would then explain his vision to all Nigerians, not to me. He didn't owe me that explanation. But so many Nigerians in my position, having been invited to meet the president in New York, would have gone. Perhaps what he would have offered is, what would it take? Well, to make you happy, here is some money. But I'm fortunate to have been brought up by parents who really drilled it in all of their children that your name should be impeccable always. Okay? So, and because my parents gave us all their children, all 5 of their children, that training, my parents did not expect me, nor do my siblings expect me to give them ill-gotten money. Okay? So I don't have the pressure to submit myself to the kind of inducement that Nigerian politicians offer to some journalists and so on. So I agree with you, Jude, that Nigeria has amazing talent. So in a lot of ways, we misspeak when we say that all the best of Nigeria's talent is abroad. The country still has amazing talent. As you rightly said, those talents are suppressed. So those of them who are in Nigeria, it's actually heart-rending. And Rudolf, I know that you and I have talked about it. The people we knew who were some of the best that we encountered in school. And you go to Nigeria and you see the lives they lead. I mean, there is an extraordinary intellectual figure that I don't want to name that I encountered in my days at The Guardian. This man was one of the best intellectuals of his generation. But by the time he died, people had to hand him money for his family to feed. So that's the kind of maliciousness, the kind of cruelty that Nigeria inflicts on its most productive citizens, potentially productive at any rate. So it's for us, as you said again, Jude, there are people who are now lining up, who know Obi or who know one of the other candidates and saying, hey, if they win, I will get something. Not if they win, I have a talent to lend to Nigeria. I have a contribution to make in order to transform Nigeria into a better space. I'm going to make something. And the country is bankrupt, financially bankrupt. We're borrowing to pay our debts and we're borrowing to pay salaries. You can't get more miserable as a nation than that.
All right. Thank you. Okay. What I'm going to do now, there are some people who posted some questions on the chat. I can't get to all of them because they keep going up and down, but I have a few that I want to get to. And then I'll give other people who are here, if you have any follow-up questions based on what Okay said, you may have an opportunity to do that. But before we do that, let me just find the ones I picked up on. Okay, this one is from SMPJ18. He said, Prof, I argue that Nigeria does not send its brightest minds out of Nigeria, but chases them out. I think the difference, noting the difference is important in this conversation. So that's what he said. Then there is one from this one is from, let me see, hold on.
I think that's the point that Jude made, actually.
Yeah, okay, this one is from Ijoma. Ijoma said, Prof Okey Ndibe, my question is this: how can the incoming president implement a system that can practice multi-professional team in the government? That's from Ijoma. And then there's this one from, that's from Ovie. Ovie is here now. Ovie, you can clarify. I think you had an issue with the way he answered your question. So, with you, Ovie, go ahead.
Yes, I thought my question was, I said in any given society, it is the easiest thing to do is to criticize, and the second easiest thing to do is to protest. Which anybody can do that. But will you agree with me that inability for me and you to come together and organize is what we fail to do or we are failing to do?
Yes.
And second, to my friend Declan, I hope I get your name right, you made a very good observation about our country and how the intellectual and everybody are building the country, which is great. But one problem that we have in our country as Nigeria is that inability for us to follow simple rules. The rules here says that ask your question, make your comments, and leave. But I don't know. We are still here.
Okay. The point you made, in fact, I saw you, I think you wrote the question. Yeah, I agree that too many times we let, whether it's ethnic or religious or some kind of cultural difference, to separate us. That there is constant mutual suspicion between different groups, that Nigeria has what could be wealth. Okay, we have multiplicity of cultures within the space called Nigeria. But what's happened is that in borrowing what the British did, this idea of divide and rule, that those who have ruined Nigeria have divided us as well. So I know that in the Obasanjo years, right, or in the Yaradua years at the presidency, that there were moments when Labour decided to call a strike to protest something that was worthy of being protested. But quickly, some elements, if Obasanjo was there, some Yoruba elements would say, they're trying to remove a Yoruba president, and so they will pull out. And so ultimately this action will fail, or sometimes it's students who would then bifurcate themselves along ethnic or religious lines. So yes, we need those of us who are enlightened. And I've said before that I consider myself a particularly fortunate, grounded Nigerian. I was born in Yola. My parents lived in Yola when I was born. I went to school in Lagos and in Enugu. I worked in Lagos. I'm married to a beautiful Yoruba American woman, and I'm an American as well. So some of the easy ethnic lines that we draw are totally nonsensical to me. And I tell people, I remember some years ago, Chubu Okadibo was Senate president, and he spent 37 million naira doing a Christmas party. Chubu Okadibo was a friend of mine, but I wrote a column savaging what he did. And I remember that an Igbo friend called me from Maryland, the state of Maryland in the US, and was angry. He said, "You're attacking a fellow Igbo." So I said to him, a simple question. I said, Chubu Okadibo is spending more than the annual salary of the US president to do a Christmas party. I said, "Is that acceptable to you because he's Igbo?" And I said, "Are your parents wealthy?" He said, "No." I said, "Let's have a situation where your mother ran into Chubu Okadibo at an event and asked Chubu Okadibo for 5,000 naira. I said, "Do you think Chuba will give it to your mom because she's Igbo?" He said, "I don't think so." I said, "Then why do you defend an Igbo man doing something that is just reprehensible?" So we have to stop that nonsense. Okay, so a lot of Nigerians, again, we are very situational in our ethics. It's like we hear somebody has stolen funds, public funds, and we say, okay, I won't get angry until I find out whether it's an Igbo man or a Yoruba man or an Efik man. So if it is somebody from outside of your ethnicity, then you walk up your moral outrage. If it is somebody who is from your ethnicity, you say, "Oh, he's not the first person who stole." So we begin to rationalize impunity, So I agree with you, village athletics, that we have to find ways. We have to defy those who want to separate us and walk across class lines, ethnic lines, state lines, religious lines, and to achieve the country of our dream. And by the way, as I said in my interview with Rudolf, even if we believe in separation into Oduduwa land, into Biafra land, into Ijaw land as nationalities, trust me, we're going to have to work to achieve that space. We're not going to have a good country because we have balkanized ourselves. Yeah.
Okay. You have more to say, but let me just defend our people here. These people, everybody here. I'm the one that said that people should leave, volunteer to leave. I'm the one that let people in. People like you, I let you in because I monitor what's going on. So we have spots. If we have space, like now we have spots for one. So I'm not going to worry anybody here to leave when I know that anybody who wants to join can join. But when I think the studio is full and there's no room, I will just, so it's intention. I mean, my goal is I like people to be here and be part of this conversation, but also I want to make sure that if there is, if people are trying to get in, that they can get in. All right.
Can I please say something, please?
Hold on. Okay, I see Jude and Nneka. I'll come to you guys and let me just join us. Hold on, okay. Okay, he's gone. All right, go ahead, Nneka.
Let me give space now. Thank you.
You can stay. We have one spot open.
No, he's saying you can stay.
Yeah. But if there's no spot, if we have 10 people here, then I will ask someone to leave. Yeah, go ahead.
Yes.
All right.
Please also, I want to comment on Alora's speech because when Alora wanted to respond initially before he came back in, he said, can we do constructive criticism in a positive and a wrong way? I just want to make sure that, Alora, that you really understood what Professor Okey was saying when he enlightened us about Obi's campaign. Because the thing with human beings is that, please, sometimes we're hearing stuff, but we're not really analyzing what that individual is trying to say. Criticism is a very good thing. It's a very, very good thing, depending on the content. And for the Igbos that are here, and I'm going to translate this proverb in English because I'm an Igbo woman and I love to use my proverbs, which I also found very prevalent as a Buddhist. Osadebe, may his soul rest in peace, said in a wedding ceremony, for the bride, he said, "Kweluka nwunye di gị kọọ gị ọnụ because na nwunye di gị kọọ gị ọnụ, ị mara ife bụ olu gị, ị nwee ike change ya." What that means in English is that you have to listen to when somebody criticizes you. Because if you listen carefully, there might be some good things that you will take from that criticism and really build yourself up. Don't just get upset when somebody criticizes you. Criticism comes in different forms. It could be out of jealousy, it could be out of arrogance, it could be out of many things. But still, you who is being criticized, please pick up the good points in it. What Professor Okey said about Obi not talking too much and using the mic so much, I think in this platform I've had that before, but at the same time, what his followers or the people working very close with Obi will do now is really to control that mic so that he's not going to say anything that would jeopardize exactly what he's trying to do. Not that he's hiding anything, but nobody is 100% perfect. We always have to be liberal and open our mind to learn from everybody. Just like a parent. You can't say because you're a parent, you're not going to listen to your child. Your child can say something that will make sense to you. You're not going to say because you're a PhD holder and you see somebody who is homeless and they're saying something and you say, what is it that this person knows? You don't know anything. Whatever that person is saying could really help you to reform yourself. And that's just what I wanted. I just wanted Alora to understand that what you said was not like you're criticizing Obi in a wrong way, but these are some of his faults that he can go in and literally try to reform so that he will emerge a better human being.
Amen.
All right, thank you.
Rudolf,
You called me out, so I have to reply.
Okay, Rudolf, by the way, yeah, Alero will come to you, but I have about roughly 15 minutes, and I have a family obligation. So I know that I did say I had all the time, but
yeah. And this team you are looking at, if you leave them, we'll be here for another 3-4 hours. So it's not all right. So
then let me make it brief.
Alero has to respond, I think.
Okay, yeah.
Okay. First of all, with all due respect, like I started with, every criticism you made for me is positive. By no means, whenever there's something, Ovie knows. Ovie has said worse things. I have no problem with that. For everything we see is a chance for us to get better. This is a movement. So I have no problem with that. But, and I want to say this, and I really mean this, anybody out there that has the intention of getting a contract or sharing, please do not follow this movement. We don't need you. I'm 100%. It will be at the cost to me. By following him, it's going to be at the cost. I know what I can offer. If you have something to offer, come. Politics as usual is over. If you want to benefit, you think your family will get richer in government, we don't need you, don't follow. That's number one. Number two, you said the best, Nigerians have the best in everything. Engineering, medical, you have people in the hometown you live in the States. But have you ever considered that Nigeria also has the best one in who Obi is? Even in all the evil in our politics, he is also the greatest mind. And your suggestion of an interim government, if we have one positive mind that we see in a leader that might be able to bring, like you said, these positive minds across the board to help rule his government, to bring us to this, even a beginning, because this is the destruction of decades. You're not going to see magic in 4 years. Just to get us on a starting point to start fighting. For us to now give it to an interim government, excuse my language, is a bunch of people that will now come, will be infused by APC and PDP, and now there'll be more of a mastermind to destroy us at a faster pace than what we're dealing with. I think we don't want to go backwards. This man wants to lead. He doesn't want to be president of Nigeria. Don't make that mistake.
All right.
He's a chance to give. Okay, I'm going to cut it short. I'll let you go to 15 minutes. Thank you.
I want to give everybody a chance to say something. 1 minute, everybody. CM and then Jude, and then I come back to you over here. CM.
Once again, thank you, Prof Ndibe. I would like to bring you a little bit home. Obviously, we're talking of Anambra State this time. So let's just can you know? So just talk it that way. So talking of Anambra State, obviously you must have read Professor Soludo's inaugural speech. With what he says there, the vision he espoused, and then what is on ground, and the way he's fighting on all fronts, no more all those Agbero, and all those everything. I mean, he's in the news now, more. So what is your take? Just like an assessment, and then what do you project? Because we have to trade on hope, because Nigeria is very, 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 Thank you.
All right, thank you. Jude.
Yeah, I saw in the comment section when somebody was saying all this, we know them. What's way? What are we going to do now? I want to say to that person, to the our larger audience, and to everybody, every Nigerian, what you want. There are so many things we as an individuals can do. Number one, let us shun corruption. Let us not only shunning corruption. Let us begin to reprove those whom we know that they're engaging in it. It is evil. It doesn't lead any nation to anywhere other than its doom. Okay, you can do this in so many ways. For instance, stop giving money to your lecturers to pass you on an exam if you're a student. If you're walking on the road, you're in a bus, and all this Agberu, government Agberu in police uniform stops you and begin to demand money from the bus driver, stop encouraging the drug driver. Beg, settle and now, and take us away from here. These are part of the ways. I lived in Lagos for years, practicing, having my own business, prior before I came to America. I have never one day given to any policeman any money on a traffic. I have been taken to police stations severally in Lagos. And guess what? I am the one that always suggests it to them. I don't want you to delay me here. If you think I've committed any offense, take me to your station. And I will drive them with my car to their station. And they'll keep me there for hours. But at the end of the day, they will release me and I will not give them any dime. They only wasted my time, but it has been on record that I never give them money. I have been delayed several times. So that is some of the ways we can do what we can do on our own to stop corruption. And finally, let me just say this in a second. This issue of identity politics, okay? Let us shun it. It is killing us. Let us shun it, please. Let us elect the best, and also believe that we still have credible Nigerians who have not soiled their hands. Let us seek out them and elect them. And by the time we do this, I believe we'll go a long way.
All right, thank you. Declan, you have something to say, question or final comment?
No, nothing from me.
Okay. Emeka?
Can you guys hear me? All right, cool. First things first, let me just say hi to Declan. I think I saw him for the first time and the last time in 2016 during the Sahara Reporters Party in New York.
Yeah.
I don't know if he still remembers that, but anyway, so like I said before, these conversations are ongoing day to day. We're going to keep talking about them, and a platform like yours, Dr. Rudolf, I think it's great, and as a lot of other platforms are great, but we got to keep having that conversation, having a sense of self-awareness. In terms of where we are from, where we might be going to. I know a lot of us are like overseas and we're like, yeah, it's all great and the different versions of that, but that's not the conversation. But we should put that in and understand where that is, where we are, where we're coming from again, and where we might be going to. So with that in mind, I would always say kindly take a look at Okey's articles on this thing. Is the safest place to put them on right now online. Substack. Okey has a very, very lovely history with the DSS. Nigeria, they're like his girlfriends that nasty breakup. So we could go into that. That's a whole not even just one episode. So take a look at that. Also, the podcast.
So it's called, by the way, Offside Musings Podcast, which Mecca Onyagwa is my co-host. We try and do it every week. We're actually trying to do more than once a week as we come closer to the elections. And our focus is to reach the young people, because it's an anomaly that a country that is almost 65% youthful demographic is led by Neanderthals. So we want that to change quickly, and we're speaking to the youths. My dream is that we reclaim something of the NSAS, the energy of the NSAS movement. So I'm seeing some interesting consciousness by young people, and the podcast, Upside Musings Podcast, which comes out between Sunday and Monday every week. But you can find it at any time by going to so many different platforms. So that's why you can follow the conversations, this kind of conversations, in an extended way with Emeka and me.
Yeah, there we go. So suggestions, anything, anything you want, just pop it up. We are on the major ones, obviously Spotify, Apple, you name it. Substack is where this thing is on. So if you can subscribe, check it out. That's the safest place. I mean, in the future, definitely we'll try and obviously put Okey's articles back on
in a newspaper or something.
Some of those papers, but this is the safest place to be at because it's rough out there, man. It's rough out there.
All right.
It's rough out there. So, Rudolf, there you go.
All right, thank you so much, Erica. Thank you. Two more comments, three, and then we're done.
I think there's King Richard who just joined.
I saw King Richard,
and then there's Zaki.
And Zaki, they are new people that joined us. But let me hear Obi say your last word before I go to King Richard. I'm coming to you, King Richard.
Okay. Yeah. I have a short question for Prof and observation to make to Alain. Prof, do you believe or do you think that an average Nigerian understand the kind of party politics that we are practicing in Nigeria?
The kind of what politics?
The kind of party politics or the kind of democracy that we are practicing, the system of government we are running in Nigeria. Do you believe an average Nigerian understands the in total? Then, Alain, to build a nation has nothing to do with your stellar ideas or your policies, but ability for you to reach a compromise with pretty much everybody. That is what is going to bring the progress that the obedience wants. So if you say, make people wait, no one collect contract come, I don't know how you will tell you the country. So now give and take. You have to repeat the give and take. If not, you are not going anywhere. Thank you. That's my observation today.
All right.
With positive intentions.
All right. All right. Let's go to Zaki. Zaki, welcome to the show. 1 minute. We are running out. We are closing. We've done 3 90 minutes. It should be 1, but we did 3 of them today. Go ahead, Zaki. 1 minute. Just a comment or question for Okey.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
All right. Thanks for having me. I've been listening from the sideline anyway. I appreciate Mr. Okey Ndibe and the rest of the crews. Ovia just asked a question just now. That's very, very important. The doctor actually understand the kind of politics we are running these days in Nigeria. Understand? And I heard him saying something about if we can overcome our ethnic base, that is exactly. Remember, I kept saying this on this show. We in the diaspora, we often seems to be viewing politics from how it should be, but not how it is on the ground. Nigerians doesn't want to hear that. We know that we have a lot of good people, saints, popes in diaspora. But how do you tackle that on the grassroots? Please, if you have any other better option, any of you in the house, you can still contribute. That's all I just want to add for now. Anyway, I'll come up later. All
right.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, King Richard. Final comment. Unmute yourself, please.
I think I have. Can you hear me?
Okay, we can hear you. Go ahead.
Okay, thank you very much, Rudolf, and thank you, Professor Okey Ndibe. My name actually is King Richard Ekwe. I was going to say that we are very fortunate that we are alive to witness this time. Prior to this very moment, we have had people say that good people, avoid politics because they assume it's a dirty game, and people who have something to offer, they don't want to get into that murky water or that dirty water of politics. But here is a time when Nigeria is so destabilized, Nigeria is so bastardized, Nigeria is so messed up that, very decent people wouldn't even have any reason to come in if you ask me. But here comes a man who by Nigerian standard we consider a saint. Yes, I'm talking about Peter Obi now. And there's no way Peter Obi would have come into this game or into the scene without joining these people. This is the standard they have created. And this is the standard that is available. So to participate and to function, he has to join them. Now, having joined them, we should, overlook the trivial and petty, blunders or mistakes that he makes, like saying he has a pair of shoes, a pair or two of shoes. We should look at, what he has to offer. We should look at his character. We should look at his principles. We should look at the things he has achieved and overlook some of those minor mistakes. Because the Yorubas say, "Kò sí bí ẹ̀dá ṣe máa rìn tí orí rẹ̀ ò ní mì." That is to say, when otu mmadụ ga-eshi gị ije, ka isi ghara ime ụṅara. There's no way a man can walk without his head swinging. You understand? And I consider Obi.
Where is the outer version?
Yes. No. I don't have the Hausa version. I'm an Igbo man of Igbo parents, born in Accra, Ghana. Yes. But we came back after the Civil War. But right now, I'm an American citizen. So I utilize the tools or the skills that I have to pass my message across. I was a journalist in Nigeria before I relocated to the US. So the point I'm trying to make right now is that we should give all it takes to support the only simply sane individual in this game. And we should overlook some of the trivial or petty mistakes or blunders he makes, because look, Obi vis-a-vis other individual is like bringing Angel Gabriel in the presence of the many demons in hell. Yes, I don't even see any means of comparison. I don't in any way. And this has nothing to do with tribe, nothing whatsoever. So we should give all it takes. Professor Okey Ndibe, I know you and you are one of my mentors, and I want to advise that you go all the way, lend your voice, so at least we can start somewhere. We cannot have, what you suggested from the beginning is impracticable. We know the Nigerian constitution and we know how we can build our government. You know, these people in power right now, they will be happy to hear you, and they will create that scenario which is suggested and mess it in further up. It will never happen. Thank you. And God bless you, Rudolf, for all you do.
Thank you so much.
So, by the way, Rudolf, by the way, the issue of what he called blunder on the aspect of Mr. Obi, I don't think that was a blunder. The man said the truth, and they will respect him a lot for that comment, comparing his shoes and where he bought the shoes in the United States. Was it not what he was referring to?
Don't even go there. Don't even go there. Sorry. Don't go there.
Okay.
No, because we love Mr. Obi for that anyway. So
okay, let me. Yeah. So unfortunately, this has been such an energetic conversation, and I look forward, Rudolf, if you invite me again and we can work out the schedule to being back at some point.
Okay.
So many different comments and questions. Let me see. Yeah, so I think it's Alaro who says that Obi wants to be a leader, not necessarily a president. Okay, you know, I think we should be careful about declaring somebody to be a saint. Okay, I think we should be extremely careful about it, because Obi is far from being a saint. Okay, I'm willing to go as far as saying that of everybody who is in the space, or the major candidates, that Obi is better than the rest of them. Right? I'm willing to go that far. And part of why Obi is exciting for me and for other people is that at least he's not one of these politicians who will say, I'm going to move the nation forward, you know, something pat, some kind of platitude. Obi talks about particular sectoral problems in Nigeria and proposes solutions to those. So that's exciting. It's about time we engage with that kind of political discourse rather than these brainless fools who just recycle phrases like, I want to deliver the dividends of democracy. But as I said, when Obi was governor of Anambra State, first of all, I was one of those who, when his election was stolen from him by the PDP and by Ngige, I happened to know Ngige, I didn't know who Obi was, but on grounds of principle, I began to write, urging Obi never to retreat from his attempts to reclaim his governorship. So I was happy that he stuck it out in court, and ultimately Ngige, who was a kind of friend of mine, was removed, as he should have been. When Obi took over, so there are certain flaws, and these are not trivial. We better address those flaws, because otherwise Obi may not learn, and he may see those flaws as strengths. One of the times when I was most critical of Obi was when doctors in Anambra State went on strike. They were asking for a kind of minuscule increment in their allowances, which were pretty low. And Obi refused, in a sense, to negotiate with them, and the strike went on for 7 or 8 months. Okay? That was insensitivity on a scale that we should not call trivial. So I was very, very critical of that. So Obi should be able to listen, okay? The other flaw that Obi has, and something that he exemplified when he was governor, is that he had commissioners, but he centralized governance, so he did not delegate. And I had an occasion to have a personal conversation with him, and I said to him, and by the way, he's like a brother to me. Some of you have seen a video of where he talked about interacting with my mother in church, where my mother asked him to leave the church, right? I'm sure some of you have said that was my mother.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So he and my mother said Obi was now her son. And Obi came to see my mom every Easter, every New Year, every Christmas. And my mom treated him like a son. When my mother died, Obi was mourned with us, with my siblings and me. So I speak as somebody who knows him intimately. But it's my duty to be objective in whatever I say. So I once said to Obi, on one occasion, I said that you don't delegate. People have said to me that you do not delegate. And Obi said to me, well, that why he did not delegate was that if you delegated tasks, that people will start stealing money. And I said to him, then choose those who would not steal. And his response to me is, where do you find them? And I lost it. I was a bit angry. I said, well, if you're an honest man, then you should know other honest people. And so where you find them is that you start with those you know. And then you say to them, find me other honest people. And I said to him that if I want to be the governor of a state, but I consider myself the only good person, that everybody is a thief, I said I would have such profound contempt for that space that I won't want to be the governor. Okay? So it is important that Obi have a broader sense of personnel decisions. So if you have a negative view of people, then you are going to centralize governance, and nobody knows enough. So if Obi as president says everything has to go through me, it's going to be a poor government, because he doesn't know nearly enough. Nobody does know enough, not even an intellectual genius. Okay? So it's important for him to have that attitude that people are fundamentally actually good. Okay? And that you can find good people, especially if you're a good man, right? So somebody, I think it's CM, who asked me a question about Anambra State and Soludo. So Soludo gave us a model of an opportunity to see what happens when people are able to exercise their choice in a credible election, right? In the election that produced Soludo, that election was preceded by a televised debate where Andy Oba, the candidate of the APC, showed himself not to belong to that platform, okay? So there were essentially two candidates. And of the two, I would say that Soludo had an edge. So Soludo is a portrait of the intellectual in government. And so his success is going to also help create a domino effect around Nigeria, because there's a certain kind of Nigerian suspicion of the cerebral, the intellectual figure. There's sort of Nigerians reduce you to, you just speak grammar, you don't know reality, you don't know real life. So we hope that Soludo succeeds. I think that Soludo was too much of an intellectual and not enough of a pragmatic politician when he began to declare that, this sit at home on Mondays was ended and that Aboros will be flushed out and so on. What you do as a pragmatic politician is to huddle with your group and to find out practical ways to resolve certain problems. So he paid a price when he made that announcement, and then there was an attack on the local government headquarters, and one of his commissioners was ultimately beheaded. But I think he's had a grip on the security situation in Anambra State, and we're counting on him. Soludo better succeed, or it will be bad not only for Anambra State but for any intellectual figure who ultimately proposes himself for political office.
I agree.
So I am following his government. And again, you see a kind of discrepancy between the intellectual, right? So Soludo had said that anybody who was going to get an appointment in his government had to write a letter, an application stating what you were going to offer and so on. And a lot of people wrote that, I understand. And there was a committee that was going to examine all of that. In the end, most of his appointments were by people who had given money, contributed, saying, "Oh, appoint this person and appoint that person." So the whole idealistic promise to choose the best and the brightest became nullified quickly in the face of the realities of politics. So he had to listen to those who gave him money rather than take this technocratic idealist position. But I think that he should be able ultimately to offer stellar leadership, but it has great impediments. The state has very little money. Nigeria has very little money. And which is why we need good leaders, extraordinarily good leaders, because you have to begin to reinvent other ways to raise money. So it's no longer that era when governors will sit down, or the president will sit down lazily, and every month the NNPC will show you what they what we have earned from oil revenue, and you can just award contracts and so on. Now you have to be in the business of producing the money that you have to use in doing anything. Jude's comment about people holding themselves to the ideal of that to their own ideals, right? So I say to people, sort of a kind of pat rhetorical saying, be the change that you want. Be the change that you want. If you want a corruption-free country, then deny yourself. Okay? If you want a better future, then subjugate that desire in yourself for instant gratification. Okay? I go home to Nigeria, for example, and people say to me, okay, you haven't built a house in your hometown and you have passed the stage to build a house. And I say to them, no, I haven't reached the stage. Okay? So I don't have a house in my hometown, but my parents gave us values. So my elder brother has a home. I stay in his house when I'm in Nigeria. And we love each other. My siblings, we have such great love, right? Because it's that kind of, you are up to the stage to build a house and you don't have the money. So what do? You start taking money from politicians who want to bribe you. But once you say to yourself, I have to maintain fidelity to certain moral values. I can never, the good name that my parents learned to me. You see, Obi met my mother and he said to my mother, here's my card, whatever you want, just tell me and I'll do it for you. And my mother said, no, my 5 children take care of me. What I want is for you to be a good governor so that everybody will benefit. And Obi said to him, that's what your son said in America, because Obi met me in America. And that whole conversation, did I want an appointment? I said, no, I'm a writer. I want to continue to write without any attachments to any form of inducement. So we have to be the change that we want in the country. Somebody asked me, I think it's Ovie, whether the average Nigerian understands, this democratic process. And the truth is, no, they don't. No, they don't. And it goes to the question of political education, which is very low in Nigeria, even amongst people with degrees and so on. So what must we do? Those of us who know better, those of us who are enlightened, should undertake the task of education. All right? I'll tell you something that happened. I was in Nigeria before the last elections, and I was invited by the Rotary Club of Ikoyi and Lagos to speak to them. So I asked the group, I said, who are you going to vote for, or the presidential candidates? Half of them said Atiku, half said Buhari. And I said to them, how about Fela Durotoye? How about Kingsley Moghalu? And their response was, oh, those don't have the structure. Sort of what is being said of Obi today. They don't have the structure. And I said to them, what does structure mean? Because structure ultimately is about those people have not stolen money from Nigeria, so they don't have the money to hand out. So I said to them, all of you have mobile phones, right? They said yes. I said, and all of you recycle photographs and videos and so on to hundreds of your friends. They said yes. I said, why don't you write a statement to your circle of friends? I said, make the opening sentence something like, I have decided to vote for Durotoye or Kingsley Moghalu. That's your first sentence. And you say, I'm urging you to make the same commitment because he or Kingsley or whatever is the best candidate. And this is why I consider him the best candidate. And say to your friends, don't make any excuses. Don't tell me they are not going to win. Because if we continue to say that the best candidate is not going to win, we fulfill that prophecy. But if the best candidate doesn't win, but a Buhari gets 30 million votes, but the person you voted for at least got 2 million, then he's taken seriously. When there is an election in the country and the Kingsley Moghalu gets 30,000 votes all over Nigeria and Buhari gets 30 million and Atiku gets 11 million, it's evidence of a country that is sick to its core. So I said to these members of the Rotary Club, I said to them, if you had a private business to run and Buhari presents himself, Atiku presents himself, and Kingsley Moghalu or Fela Durotoye presents himself, I said, would you give an interview to Buhari? They said no. They would entrust the running of their business to these other two candidates. I said, then why is it that when we are talking about the running of a more complex organism of our country, you will give it to the candidate that you will not trust to run your personal business? So there's something warped about the way we think about our country and about our space. And
okay.
So,
okay, sorry. I don't want to interrupt you. I know you're rounding up, but I want to say something. A lot of comments have been seen, and we've been here for more than 3 hours, getting to 4. And we've not mentioned Omoyele Sowore. And I know that there's a question that came in now, and it made me think about it. The question was about you worked with Sowore, and that Sowore believes that everybody else is a thief other than him, and it connects to what you were saying about Obi and other things. So, but what do you think about Omoyele Sowore and his presidential run? I feel bad that I didn't talk about it because, yeah.
Well, first of all, we don't have enough time.
Okay? just summarize it. Just make it.
Okay. I think that Sowore was best running Sahara Reporters. How about that? I think that Sowore would do a much better job running Sahara Reporters than running a nation. I don't think that Sowore has a temperament to run a nation. And this is not necessarily a criticism. It's the same way sometimes people say to me, Okey Ndibe, why don't you go and present yourself as a political candidate? And I say that the gifts that I've been given by God and the gifts that I have perhaps shaped are the gifts to be a writer and a teacher. As a politician running a local government, I might make a mess of it. I don't have the temperament to be a politician. Okay, I don't have the temperament to be a senator. I will speak good grammar and so on, but some of the willing and dealing I'm not good at. So it's out of self-knowledge that I say I can be, if somebody becomes president of Nigeria and says to me, okay, Ndibe, come and be the minister for education, I will not accept. Now, if you set up a great university and you say, come and be a teacher, not the administrator, I'll go teach children there. I'll go teach young students. Okay, so Sowore, I think, is best as a publisher of Sahara Reporters. He has that, that's his temperament, and that's where I see his gifts lying. I will not say we don't have enough time, but I don't think that Sowore is somebody that I'll vote for as president or that I'll propose as president or local government chairman or senator or anything of the sort.
Okay, one last thing before we go. We don't really have to go. If you're watching, and please, can you like the video? I was told that YouTube has a way of making the videos up so that people can watch it, because we spent like 4 hours here. We want more people to watch it later. Dr. Dominic, I let you in because I know you've been writing, telling me that you are awake. You know, you will have been here. You wanted to see and say something to do you have any comments here?
Yeah, my ancestors woke me up from sleep.
Oh my God!
To come and rub shoulders with the likes of Mr. Ndibe. Yeah, sorry, I finished night shift and I usually work long hours. So I was like, I have to be here.
Yes.
So it's a privilege to be in the same forum as you are. I haven't gone back to listen to much of what you've said, but I've kind of heard the ideas that you've espoused, and I know that you're a sound literary mind who is passionate about Nigeria. I just want to comment mostly just on the last thing that you said about Sowore, and for me, it pains me that sometimes we as intellectuals, not to be egotistic, we as intellectuals sometimes don't realize that we buy into some of the group thinking that is happening in Nigeria, right? I almost see like it's interesting how you talk about how people say, "Oh, Obi doesn't have structure," but I think unknowingly you use the same thinking that you're trying to undercut, right? With Sowore, right? I think the only criteria for someone who wants to rule a nation as diverse and as messy as Nigeria is the love for Nigeria. That is all you need. Because if you think through African history on those who wanted to make changes and have been undercut by the colonial masters, for lack of a better word, there are people who are radical, who are passionate about Africa. Some of them were people who are radicals, people who even had to do coups and the likes, and military men, right? I think the only criteria you need to rule relations with Nigeria is the love for Nigeria and patriotism. Because guess what? We are just people living in Nigeria, but there are no Nigerians. Because guess what? As far as I'm concerned, without sounding dystopian, Nigeria is a contraption. Not in an insulting way. These are, group of people that were put together to be in one country. But there has been nothing in the since our independence to bring us together as one mind. And so we are just multiple nations coexisting in the same space and attempting for many decades to be cohesive with very different mindset and interests that ends up clashing. Right? We have the ethnicity, religion, and all of those things. So I think it's a disservice to us when we put the little man such as Sowore, who has been passionate about Nigeria for the last 20 years and been fighting for us, and we think, because he doesn't have much political clout, right, that he does not deserve to be Nigerian president.
Let me because my family has been waiting for mountain. So let me put it this way. No, I'm not saying that Sowore cannot be the president of Nigeria because it doesn't have structure. If Sowore had all the structure to become president, I'm saying that he's not somebody I will propose as president, because I don't think that temperamentally that Sowore will be a good president. That's what I'm saying. I'm saying that, and I worked closely with Sowore, right? And that's why I said we don't have enough time, in a sense, to get into this, right? So it has nothing to do with structure. It's just that from my knowledge of Sowore, I'm saying that he would not be a good president of Nigeria. He would be good at what he did, which was to run Sahara Reporters. And one is not to minimize this, right? So as Sahara Reporters in his heyday held politicians to account. unfortunately, is not doing that as well this moment, right? And the reason it's not doing well as well as it did in its early days is also a criticism of Sowore, which we could get into. Do you understand? But we don't have the time to get into all of that. And so if you start a website like Sahara Reporters, which is which was in its early days an amazing website, which struck terror in the hearts of politicians. And today, the website no longer commands the kind of attention that it once did. It's a criticism of your leadership, okay? And if you are not able to sustain Sahara Reporters, you can't sustain a more complex organism called a nation. So my coolness to Sowore's presidency has nothing to do with the absence of structure. I'm actually saying that Sowore, in my view, would not be a good president. If he put his attentions and put his effort, he would be a good publisher of Sahara Reporters.
Okay, finally,
and we don't have enough time so that we could spend an hour or two getting into this, but we don't have the time because my family, I said I would leave at 3, is now 3:24.
Okay, yeah, that's why I have to stop everything. I want to just mention that some comments about Declan. Some people don't know that. If you don't know,
they're saying why is a white man there, right?
Yeah, why is Sahara? Yeah, some people don't know that, and they were complaining. Why is the white man here? What is he doing? Is this fine?
Is this fine on us?
And Dino will tell you how he chased him around in Lagos. So for those who do not know that,
thanks for clarifying that, because I'm one of them that said this guy was snitch.
So Rudolf, you can tell them who Declan is.
Yeah, he knows your people more than some of us, Yes. So on that note, okay, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you, guys.
Wonderful.
Declan, you are forgiven.
And I want to thank everybody.
Thank you so much.
I want to thank everybody. Declan, Emeka, Jude, Dr. Dominic, King George.
I beg, give us the link to Prof podcast.
Offside Musings. So it's Offside Musings podcast, and it comes. The column itself comes out on Emeka on the Substack, right? Yeah. So Rudolf, we're going to send you the links later, and so that you can put it out
in the description.
So, Emeka, I don't know if you can write it.
Emeka can write it too on the comments. Yeah. For those who are watching. Emeka, write it on the comments.
So Emeka, you can write how to get to the podcast and how to get to my column. So every week we try and do a podcast and a column together. So Emeka will provide that information. Guys, this has been such an enlivening
thank you. Thank you.
This is a win-win. It's a win-win.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. I'm impressed.
Thank you. And we
now only Dominic miss.
So Dr. Dominic, I'm sorry that you came late.
It's a privilege to listen to you.
He's chasing the dollar.
Yeah, it's important.
Who Declan is? Some of us that came late, we don't know. Declan.
So Declan actually worked for Sahara Reporters. Okay, so he was an editor at Sahara Reporters, and he was a good reason that Sahara Reporters was highly successful in his best days. So and he's passionate. He studied politics under some extraordinary African scholars in New York, and so he's passionate about Nigerian and African politics. And he's currently in Kenya, where he's doing great work.
Thank you.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you, everybody. And see you next week, Wednesdays and on Saturdays. And then, of course, we'll get the guests.
So, Emeka, are you able to put in the information?
Rudolf, you have to connect me and Mr. Ndibe.
Rudolf, connect us, yeah?
Yeah.
No problem. Yeah.
All right. Thank you, guys.
Thank you, everybody.
My wife has been waiting patiently.
See you guys.
All right. Okay. Take care. Yes.
Okay, we are frozen. But